10,000 woman. Mister, we could use a man like Herbert Hoover again.
Welcome to the Early Watch Morning Gun Show. I am your host, Dead Horse. There are some links out there to some co-hosts. We'll see who joins us today. I believe Daniel should be appearing shortly. And we got some news today, at least some interesting things to talk about. Let's see here. Let me go over there to the YouTube side. Usually takes a couple minutes for people to start to tune in. Let's see here. Man, lots of news today. All right. So, I watched an interesting video yesterday about bulletproof holsters. Seems a common thing is, discharging your weapon accidentally while reholstering or unholstering a weapon. And watched this video, basically wondering why there wasn't more bulletproof holsters out there, like to catch a bullet, And there's a company that makes one that apparently can. Awesome. So I was just talking about bulletproof holsters. Have you ever heard of a bulletproof holster?
No.
So it seems like a common negligent or accidental discharge issue occurs when someone is either reholstering their weapon and might still have their finger on the trigger while trying to reholster, or unholstering their weapon, putting their finger on the trigger too fast, right? And that seems to be a common thing. And there's a company out there making bulletproof holsters. They're made to catch a bullet if you mess up like that, or even if the gun was to somehow fail and I guess accidentally go off, but either way, it's made to catch that round. And I was wondering how realistic is that, and is that a good idea? I was going to pose that question today.
I would think it would be a good idea, because if you did accidentally have a discharge, you wouldn't hurt anyone, hopefully.
Well, yeah, especially yourself, right? And that's what I think it's really geared at. Like when I first saw it and I was like, bulletproof holster, honestly, the first thing that came to my mind was like, oh, someone shoots you and they just so happen to hit your gun, like while it's in your holster.
Right.
Then maybe your gun's still operable, right? You can still use it. That's what I first thought until I started watching the video, and then I was like, oh, this is made to, like, so you don't shoot yourself accidentally. It's made to catch your own round. And and I know that is a very common thing. I can't tell you how many videos I've seen on YouTube of people shooting themselves, while either pulling the gun right out of the holster or trying to put it back in. So, with today's, a lot of holsters today are made out of Kydex, right? And Kevlar can be like a very similar material to Kydex. So I'm just wondering how come we're just, barring cost, obviously, how come there isn't more Kydex holster, or not Kydex, but a Kevlar holster option?
I wouldn't know, except probably nobody's thought of it yet.
Yeah. Well, this video I watched, though, man, it looked old. It looked like it was from, like, I don't know, the early 2000s or something. It did. It looked old. Granted, it could have just been the guy using a 20-year-old camera. It's hard to say like how old the video really is, but just you can just like watch like some things, right, and like get a feeling for like when they were filmed, right?
Right.
And the feeling I got from the video I watched was like, oh, this is 20 years old. Like this guy came out with this 20 years ago. And I tried researching the holster company and stuff. I can't find them. I can't find any. I think they're long out of business. So obviously, like it wasn't it wasn't a success. But I'm thinking it was probably the cost of Kevlar, especially if it was like 20 years ago, right?
Right.
So with today's newer technologies, carbon fiber, graphene, stuff like that, I'm wondering if that might not be a plausible option to maybe start thinking about, especially with how popular striker fired guns are out there, and that those seem to be the main perpetrators of these NDs and ADs right out of holsters.
Right. Excuse me.
I bet it would still hurt though. So
Oh, yes. Uh, from what I understand, when they wear the vest, you still get, the vest is soft. It's going to deform when the round hits it. So they're going to get some kind of damage to the body.
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's still, but
And
the video was. I'm gonna put the link to one of the videos because after I saw this first one, I went and looked up a couple more. But in this video, the guy actually shoots the gun in his pocket while it's in his special holster, right?
right.
So he literally shoots it on his person. Granted, it probably wasn't right up against his leg. It looks like it's kind of pointing away from his body while being in his pocket. But still, he does it, and it contains the round, And so I was pretty impressed by that. Like, you know, you got to have some sort of cojones on you to put a loaded gun in your pocket and pull the trigger. Let's see here. Here's the link out there in the YouTube side and on the gun channel side to that. Like I said, to one of those videos about the bulletproof holster. And I just thought that was an interesting concept. Like it's
Yes.
but I have a feeling it's price.
It
that the holsters
would
are
be
probably
pricey.
like $200 or something, $300. Let's see here. What else is there? Let's see. We had another link over here. Okay. What? Dano sent me a link and I'm trying to figure out what it is. Let's see. I don't know what he was trying to. He was talking about force on force, but I think he sent me the wrong link.
Oh,
So, oh, there's Tony. Oh crap, Tony's out there. Let me give Tony a link. I thought I already. Let's see here. Apparently, I did not. Huh. Let's see, Tony. There you go, Tony. There you go. Tony's got a link out there. I'm curious to see what Tony thinks about a bulletproof holster. Let's see. Oh man, did you hear about the Antifa that was arrested?
no, I didn't.
Gosh, so this is like a scary thing. Like this should be a public service announcement. Maybe I'll do that a couple times during the show today. So public service announcement time. So all of us gun guys know who our savior, our Lord and Savior is John Moses Browning. We all know the great John Moses Browning, right? So what if all of a sudden a gun club appeared in your area and you saw like an advertisement for a gun club in your local area and it was like John Brown Gun Club?
Yes.
Right? And you'd be like, oh, John Brown Gun Club? Like maybe that's like short for Browning or like, like, yeah, it's a gun club. It's got to be a bunch of good guys, right?
Right.
It's an Antifa group.
Right.
It's the armed Antifa group in Washington, and they go by the name the John Brown Gun Club. Their motto is like "kill white supremacists" or something, right?
You're coming at the wrong person that they're going after. They're basically taking the name from John Brown from Kansas.
Well, John Brown. Oh no, I know. It's John Brown, the guy who killed people, who killed dissidents back in the Civil War, who were slave people who. So John Brown, yeah. So let's go into the history of that. So John Brown was a guy who was like totally against slavery. He went around and killed not only people who were slave owners, but people who were just like sympathized with it, or people who were just like not against it as much as he was, who wouldn't join his posse. He would kill them in cold blood with swords and like run them through, right? Like not even waste a bullet on them. And he did this for a bunch of people, to a bunch of people. Then he tried to break into a Confederate armory to get more guns and ammunition and weapons, and he got caught by General Lee's troops, and then General Lee hung him. But that's who John Brown was he was a cold-blooded murderer, is who he was. But that's the name that they picked to name their gun group after, right? But very similar to John Browning. And that's why I think this needs to be a PSA. I think it could be very easily for someone to see that and just like not click and be like, oh, John Brown Gun Club, let's go find out what this is about. And next thing that you know, you have your MAGA hat on and stuff, and next thing you know, you're surrounded by Antifa, all with guns, because it's the armed Antifa group.
All you need to do is find an image of Browning and Brown and put them on there with the caption John Moses Browning and John Brown.
Yep. But it's scary. So what happened is this group, someone in Seattle, some guy, right? Not even like a public official or a high-ranking person. We've all heard about like Antifa going to like Tucker Carlson's house and harassing him at his house and threatening his family and stuff. But Tucker Carlson has like private security and he has resources and stuff like this, right? And they were doing that basically to just some random guy because of his social media posts. So literally, this could just be any guy like me or you or anyone who's like, oh, I voted for Trump. And that's all it took to set these guys off. So they announced on social media they were planning an armed march outside this guy's house, like an armed protest. Well, these guys meet at a public library, like the Antifa holds their meetings at a public library. So this guy, instead of waiting for a bunch of armed people who don't like him and who are threatening him to come to his house, he went to the public library and confronted them, right? Well, he had some choice words to say that at them, and they exchanged words back and forth, and but that was that. The guy was all pretty civil about it and everything, unlike Antifa. And then when the guy left, Antifa sent a couple of their thugs after him and followed him all the way home and stalked his house like with guns and using intimidation tactics, like having a concealed firearm, but lifting up your shirt and putting your hand on it just to show the guy. And this guy has pictures and video of all this, so luckily he has good evidence of the intimidation and stuff they were using. And for once, some, I guess, anti-gun laws were actually put to some use, and the anti-gun laws that the leftist Democrats put into place got used against them and arrested their own kind. And these guys are being charged with felony harassment and stalking, and will probably never get their gun rights back if the guns they even had on them were legal in the first place. Like, we don't even know that yet. But yeah, I mean, their own gun laws basically got used against them. These people use intimidation tactics and threatening and will stalk you and your family and do all sorts of despicable stuff. And it would be very easy for one of us or just some guy maybe getting new into guns to see a name like that. Oh, John Brown Gun Club. Let's go find out what this is about, and basically just walk into the wrong room wearing the wrong thing and then be in a bad situation, right? So that's why I think it's important for that to be a PSA, because I can just see some bad stuff happening, just because you see the word gun club and you just automatically assume, oh, these people are like me. They're going to be like-minded like me. And that just because they're gun owners doesn't mean that we're all in the same boat.
That is for certain.
But yeah, I was just, I'll post a video, link to a video about that out there if anyone wants to check that out later. It's about 12 minutes long, but it's definitely worth watching. Let's see here. But yeah, I was shocked. I was like, John Brown Gun Club? Like, who are they harassing? What's going on? Why would a gun club be like, threatening to kill people. But that's what you're going to hear about on the media too. Is you're not going to hear, oh, it's an Antifa group. You're going to hear, oh, this gun club was just, stalking and threatening this guy.
Well, with the liberals, Antifa is their hero. So,
Oh, it's their puppets. Yeah. It's their
yeah,
puppets. They're mindless teen puppets to just go do their bidding. It's their little army.
their action arm, yes. It goes out and takes care of the bad guys, us. Or they consider us bad guys, you know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're all evil white supremacists.
Yeah.
It's always been my contention that it's very misguided to think that all liberals want to get rid of guns. They don't. They want to get rid of us having guns.
Yep. And if you if you listen to some of their promotional videos about their gun club and stuff, and listening to them talk about their gun group, all they're talking about is literally stuff we talk about. Oh, gun control got started because of racism and because they didn't want blacks to have guns and all this stuff, So if you don't know they're Antifa and you're just listening to their bullet points and stuff like that, you're like, oh yeah, these are gun guys. These are my people, right? Until they're like, oh, kill Whitey. Let's go burn down Whitey's house. And then it's like, oh wait, no, these aren't my gun guys. But it could be, like I said, it could be very easy for someone to fall in or get mixed up into this wrong crowd. And basically all they would have to do is just walk into a room wearing the wrong thing and things could go bad. Because this really is a more of a militant type, almost guerrilla type warfare group we're really talking about. No matter how much of a joke you want to think they are, they're dangerous. And they've already proven that several times over, that they can be just as dangerous as any other political extremist group out there.
There's no doubt about that.
Oh, so John, what state are you from again?
Sorry, had to find the mute button.
A hidden state, evidently.
I'm from New Hampshire right now.
New Hampshire. So do you have any gun control measures going on up there?
The House, New Hampshire House just passed the red flag law and a magazine ban law. And I believe it's got to go to the Senate now.
What's the magazine ban law? 10 rounds?
Yeah.
Ouch.
And we'll get, like I said, they passed the red flag law too.
What's the main group you see up there fighting that's opposing that? Is it a local group or a national group like GOA or something? Or what's the main group you see fighting?
The information I got was from the local New Hampshire NRA.
Okay.
So they're the ones that are fighting it, I guess.
Do you know when that goes to the Senate?
No.
Probably in fall, I'm guessing.
Yeah. I'm sure they're trying to fast track it, but I'm not sure when it goes.
What are its chances?
I don't know.
How pro-gun of a state is New Hampshire?
They were way up there. I mean, we have constitutional carry. There are hardly any. Well, you go to a gun store and they do a background check with the state police. They don't go to the FBI.
Okay, so it's a non. Yeah. You guys don't use NICS and stuff. Okay.
No. And pretty much, like I say.
Now, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
How often do you hear about crimes being committed in New Hampshire, where if the criminal had over 10 rounds, that was an actual factor in the crime, or like, oh, he had 30 round mags, like that was an actual part of the thing. Like, is that even a real thing?
Not very often. Like I said, the state of New Hampshire is kind of.
Well, because I can't remember. I may be forgetting one, but I can't remember any like mass shootings or anything going on in
No.
New Hampshire, or I can't remember where they're like worried about. I don't know why they're worried about 30 round magazines. Is what I'm trying to say. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, like what happened to make them say all of a sudden, like, oh, 30 round magazines out of nowhere? We got to worry about these.
They got the. They got the idea from all the other states that are doing it, so they want to do it too. Because just like all liberals and politicians, they want to control. Like Tony said, they want to take our guns from us. They don't mind having their guns. They don't mind having the police with guns so that because they think they control the police.
Well, historically, every single person who's ever wanted to ban guns was okay with themselves having guns. They trusted themselves,
Right.
or their military, or their, but just not the public. It's not the people, right? It's not people they don't know.
Yes.
So, like when General Mao, like when he disarmed China, like he didn't say like, okay, now China army, throw away your guns too. Like,
No. No. Basically,
you need guns to disarm. Like that's the thing. Like
right.
in order to disarm a population, you need guns to do that.
You need somebody with a gun to come take the guns of the people that got them, right? And like I say, I think they're just following along, and they've seen what's going on in other states, and they're trying to do the same thing here.
Which is weird because usually, like, something has to hit close to home, usually for a state to go to that kind of extreme. Like, I don't know. Like, who's your governor right now? Is your governor like a hardcore Dem right now, or what?
Sununu.
Sununu?
Yeah.
Now, are they a Democrat?
Sununu. Yes, I think he is.
Ah, okay.
I know my senators are Democrats, but I think my state representative is a Republican. But they're pretty much rhinos.
Oh, he's a young guy too. This Chris Sununu. He looks pretty like a young guy.
Yeah,
He's a Republican.
Oh, he is Republican?
Yeah, 82nd governor of New Hampshire, American Republican politician. Previously a member of the New Hampshire Executive Council. He was born in Salem, New Hampshire. It says he's a Republican, but that doesn't mean a lot. Sometimes they're like, oh, I'm Republican just to get elected, right? But all their views and opinions are Democrat.
I'm pretty sure he's a rhino.
Yeah. You're probably right, yeah. Let's see. Chris Sununu. Let's see what his NRA rating is. Let's see here. Chris Sununu, NRA rating. Chris Sununu on gun control. Rated A by the NRA. So he has an A rating by the NRA.
Huh.
So this is what he says. This is his own words, okay? As a parent of 3 young children, I know that if we can't put our kids on the school bus and know they are safe, nothing else matters. I advocate for a new public school infrastructure fund, which is investing nearly $20 million in state funds directly to communities and making long overdue infrastructure upgrades and security upgrades. In the end, close to 300 schools across the state will receive security funding grants. Our goal is simple: to make New Hampshire schools the safest in the nation. So, let's see, he has an A rating, So, he has an A+ record on the legislature, with not only an excellent voting record on all critical NRA issues, but who has also made a vigorous effort to promote and defend the Second Amendment. Solidly pro-gun candidate, including voting record. So apparently he's a pro-gun guy. You know,
One of the good ones.
maybe, but we'll see if he signs this bill, and because he can veto it, right? Being the governor. So if it passes the Senate, then it gets put on his desk, and then he can just veto it, right? So we'll see what he does, I guess.
That's all we can do. Just watch and see what he does.
So, but just judging from his record and his previous voting record, I would say you probably don't have a lot to worry about.
I hope so.
Was he also the reason responsible for New Hampshire to get a constitutional carry?
No, that happened before him.
Okay.
That happened in 13 or 14.
Let's see. No, he signed it. Constitutional carry legislation.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Oh,
He signed it into law. Governor Sununu was joined by sponsors of the legislation and delivered the following statement. SB 12 ensures New Hampshire citizens are guaranteed the fundamental right to carry a firearm in defense of themselves and their families, as prescribed by Article 2A of our state constitution, said Governor Chris Sununu. This common sense legislation aligns our concealed carry laws with that of our neighboring states of Vermont and Maine and states across the country. This is about safety. This is about making sure that the laws on our books are keeping people safe while remaining true to the live free or die spirit that makes New Hampshire the great state that it is. This is a comment I made to the people of New Hampshire, and I am proud today to fulfill that, or this is a commitment I made to the people of New Hampshire, and I am proud today to fulfill that commitment, signing SB 12 into law. So, considering this is the guy who brought constitutional carry to New Hampshire, I'm going to go out on a limb and say you have nothing to worry about. I don't know of any politician who's like, you can have constitutional carry, but you can't have 30-round magazines. I don't think those two.
yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't believe that either.
I wish we had him here as governor.
Right. I'm in a pro-gun state, and I got like an anti-gun governor, so I know what that's like. I know what it's like.
We got anti-gun House and Senate and governor here. We are so screwed.
Oh yeah, well, you got Chicago is why you're screwed. For real, if Chicago got wiped off the face of the earth tomorrow by, let's say, an asteroid, right? Like, I have a feeling Illinois would like kind of like I don't know, it would heal. That's the only way I can put it. Is it heal?
Shit, I'd settle for a tidal wave off of Lake Michigan. Oh shit.
So what about you, Tony? Anything going on since recently in Illinois? Any gun stuff or neighboring states, or this any 2A stuff news in general that either of you guys have heard of coming up?
I haven't heard of anything lately. They put out a bunch of stuff right at the beginning of the term, and it's all in committees here and there, except for the shit that Pritzker already signed.
Yes, I haven't heard of anything either.
Well, out in the comment section, Echo says that in California, Dianne Feinstein has a concealed carry permit. I'd believe that. She carries a J-frame 38 special. Like, yeah, I'd believe that she. I'm sure, like, even if she doesn't carry anymore, like, come on, dude. She's surrounded by armed security guards, has a police patrol sitting outside of her house 24 hours a day. Like, you know, she basically has guns, whether they're on her person or not. She's using guns to defend herself, right? In some way, shape, or form, she has guns to defend herself. And those of us that can't afford armed security, or that isn't paid to us for free by the taxpayers, right? Like, that's what they don't understand, and that's why I'm against lifelong politicians and career politicians is because they get so out of touch with reality and the common person. And, you know, I don't know. I think that a politician should have to like live in the worst slum in their district. Like the highest crime rate, like the worst like neighborhood in their state, city, count, like that's where they should have to live. That's where they should have to bed down. I'll tell you what, you would see some of these bad ghettos change real quick.
I had toyed with the thought that all politicians should be paid on the basis of the minimum wage.
Oh, that is a great idea. But guess what? Then minimum wage would be like, you know, $60 an
$800,000
hour.
a year. Yeah, that would
Minimum
be
wage would be $60 an hour, and a Big Mac would be like $500. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, kids, you can have a Big Mac or you can have college. Which is it?
Whoa. Gosh, those poor guys. Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys ever catch it, but I opened the show with like a little theme part from All in the Family. Man.
No, I didn't.
That's how I've been opening the show with the theme music is the All in the Family like intro. If you guys, yeah, Tony had to have watched that show. Both of you guys had to have watched that show.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
Okay. So, because yeah, I watched the hell. I know I've seen every episode of that show at least 2 or 3 times. So, that fantastic show, something that could not be on the air today. Like no way. Like not even on HBO. I don't even think HBO would syndicate that, no matter what the views or rating. I don't think it could be on TV today.
Blazing
No, I don't
Saddles is
either.
another example.
You literally can't find it. Like seriously, go to like Amazon or Netflix or on demand. Like you can't, you know, it's not on syndication. You can't just go to your cable channel and go. At least I haven't been able to find it anywhere. Like, you know, it's just not on TV today. It pulls way too many feathers. But back then, people like, you know, even people that poked fun of still watched that show, you know, because it was funny.
Yeah, and it was making a statement. I mean, that was on purpose.
Yeah, and then look at because of that show, what happened? We got the Jeffersons, right? Because of that show.
Yes.
And the Jeffersons did the same exact same thing, but from their perspective, right? And from a whole different perspective. And it was great having both those on, and literally they would run back to back, and they would talk, like literally focus on a lot of the same issues and topics from different perspectives.
Right.
And I'd miss both. The Jeffersons going to be on. I don't know. I'll go out on a limb and say the Jeffersons going to be on TV nowadays either.
I don't know. I
Oh,
doubt it. Yeah, All in the Family is. It was.
Ahead of its time.
Yeah, funnier than shit.
yes.
Have you ever heard his gun control? Do you remember his gun control arguments? Remember where he would go on TV on the show, right? So his character would go on the show, would go on like the local TV station, and he would have that little comment thing, right? And then he'd be sitting at home with Lilith watching it, right? And he would be talking about like the local issues. Do you guys remember that? And how he talked. Oh God! So he had this gun control speech, right, about politicians and disarming the. You know what? I posted on my Instagram. I just better play it because there's no way I can do it the way he did, right? Like, there's just no way you could match. And he was so spot on. And then he makes some comedy into it too, right? He was like, oh, and these because like hijacking was like a real big thing back then. Hijacking planes, and it was happening all over the world. And so he's like, oh, and these hijackers, you see, like how you deal with these hijackers is everyone who gets on the plane, you just hand them a gun as they get on the plane. And then when everyone gets off the plane, you just like collect their guns. It was like ingenious. It was just, oh man, Archie Bunker way ahead of his time. Let's see if I can find that video. I know I posted it like a ways back. It's probably gonna be a couple years. Let's see here.
Just imagine what he would think if he looked at our world today.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind bringing back some certain TV shows like that. Like have it like literally everything's so PC and stuff nowadays, and the comedies is so and like they don't even focus on real issues or relative issues or anything. Like where like comedy shows back in the day would actually touch on those subjects in such a way to make you think, right? They wouldn't necessarily try and cram anything down your throat like Saturday Night Live does, but they would just make you think. The change between TV today and TV back then, unbelievable. That's why I probably don't watch much TV nowadays, like any kind of TV shows or anything like that. It's just, nope.
Didn't Good Times spawn from the All in the Family bunch and Maude too?
Yep,
Yes.
it sure did. Several shows came out of that. Several. I mean, oh, here we go. Okay, so, all right, so I'm gonna play this. See if this works.
Now I want to talk about another thing that's on everybody's mind today, and that's your stick-ups and your skyjackets. Which, if that was up to me, I could end the skyjackets tomorrow. You could? All you got to do is arm all your passengers. Maybe he ain't got no more superiority there. He ain't going to dare to pull out no rod. And then your airlines, then they wouldn't have to chase the passengers on the ground no more. They just pass out the pistols at the beginning of the trip, and they pick them up again at the end. Case closed. That's Good evening, everybody. Archie Bunker of 704 Houser Street, veteran of the Big War, speaking on behalf of Guns for Everybody. Now, question. What was the first thing that the communists done when they took over Russia? Answer, gun control. And there's a lot of people in this country want to do the same thing to us here in a kind of conspiracy. See, you take your big international bankers, they want to, masticate the people of this here nation like puppets on a wing. And then when they get that done, turn us over to the communists.
Oh, Archie, I'm glad they put you on the stool.
Good evening, everybody.
That guy was so ahead of his time and spot on. It's not even funny. There's a lot more to it. Like if you guys have never it was called the editorial rebuttal, and that he would do on TV, like on the show, like his character would be on TV on the show, doing a thing called the editorial rebuttal, and it was ingenious. Archie Bunker's editorial rebuttals were like just so far ahead of their time. Like he hit on subjects like we're just preaching about nowadays. And then the way he would intentionally mispronounce words and stuff like that to get the guy was just absolutely genius. That was all him too. That wasn't the writers. That was all him. If you guys have ever watched the documentary on All in the Family and and everything, that was all him.
Yeah, but was he actually pro-gun or just acting like one?
No, he was his character. So if you watch the documentary, he was his character. So
he's a completely different person in Heat of the Night.
Yes. That's true. Of
well, that
course,
was still a good show, though. Like he played an excellent sheriff in that. Right, that's what he was. He was the sheriff in that, right?
yes.
Yeah.
I didn't see too many episodes of In the Heat of the Night.
Like apparently, like his views on All in the Family like were hit like those were like a lot of his real views and stuff. That wasn't writer stuff, right? And his inspiration for the actual character and all that like came from one of his uncles or something like from in his family. And it's a really neat. There's a whole documentary on that. They talk about like Lilith's death in the show and just like so. If you're a fan of the show, you have to watch that documentary. And but like a lot of those editorial rebuttals and all that, that was him. He wrote those. That was him. That weren't writers. That was like him. So like a lot of that gun stuff and a lot of like the real hardcore topics that they touched on in the show were him. Like so I don't know. Him and the son-in-law he didn't like in the show. It was both of them. A lot of their things were what the writers were focusing on, the stuff that they wanted to talk about and touch on. And they pretty much had like free reign. A lot of their back and forth and their arguing in the show where it was like real bickering, like not scripted. That's what made it so good and so because it wasn't scripted. It was like real bickering, real like, oh no, you're wrong, like stuff. It was like real talk, I guess.
Sorry, taking this slug and wash down the pills.
Uh-oh.
That's nothing new. I just take a shitload of pills every day.
Yeah. So does 90% of the rest of America. That's perfectly normal. That's not even a thing anymore. I don't know anyone who doesn't take pills of some sort, whether they're supplements or vitamins or something. Everyone's popping pills.
It's a liberal plot to control us all with drugs.
I'm surprised our food just doesn't come in little pills like astronaut stuff. It just expands in our stomach or something. Get all the stuff we need in a little pill.
That would make trucking and storage a lot more convenient. Not to mention stockpiling.
So, Tony, I talked about something earlier and with John here, and so I want to get your opinion on it. So, a lot of, especially with today's striker-fired pistols that really don't have any kind of safety on them, right? The safety's on the trigger, which really isn't a safety. That NDs and ADs, accidental discharges and negligent discharges, are pretty common unholstering and reholstering those weapons. Like I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube. I really think there is something to that there's something to it. It's a training issue, obviously, but still there's people out there who are getting hurt, right? And putting their gun back in their holster with their finger still in the trigger guard, and and then the holster hits their finger and the gun goes off. And or they're trying to pull their gun out of their holster too fast and and trying to grip the weapon, and they slap that trigger and the gun goes off and they shoot themselves in the thigh or dick or something like that, right? And I've seen, over the years I've seen this multiple videos of those exact scenarios. And I got this video by Think Like a Cop about a bulletproof holster. And at first I thought it was like, oh, bulletproof to like protect your gun if you got shot in it or something, right? Like maybe to where your weapon would still work. But like, no, it's made literally just to catch that bullet of guys who mess up, right? Or maybe a gun that malfunctioned. I've seen at least one video of literally it was either a gun or the holster itself malfunctioned because the guy did not have his weapon on it at all. He just bent over while his gun was on him and the gun went off, right? So, so whether that was the gun or holster fault, I'm not sure, but it wasn't his fault. But if he would have had one of these holsters, these bulletproof holsters, it would have caught that round and he wouldn't have got shot through the nads and through the leg. And this holster, I'm guessing, is made out of some sort of Kevlar material, but it can catch a 9mm point blank, at least a 9mm. I'm not sure what other calibers it's rated for, but at least a 9mm, it can catch that point blank. And with today's technologies and how they can make basically carbon fiber, just like Kydex, and Kydex holsters are so popular. And is that a real thing to pay the extra money to have a holster that's bulletproof?
Not for me. I mean, an ND is going to occur at some point in most gun people's life.
Depending on how much they handle the firearms, I'd say. Because it's like, let's relate it to flying. If you never fly, well, you never have to worry about getting into a plane accident. If you fly every day for your job, you're much more highly likely to have an accident, no matter how careful and professional like you are, right? Even if you're the pilot. And so the more you handle guns and the more you are around them and you're using them, the more likely something is to happen. I think that's just the way it is. It doesn't matter how good you are, how much you train, even like this, the most respected people that I know in the gun world have had NDs and 80s. So
yeah, and you know, as far as I've seen, the frequency of various weapons is kind of hard to get to, because you see a lot of videos where people do that with the 1911 because they inadvertently deactivate the safety. I had one getting up out of the chair with a freaking revolver on my lap, and the hammer caught on the arm of the chair, and the thing had been altered so that transfer bar didn't work. It went off.
Well, and it's not just striker fired guns. Like 1911s are definitely prone for it too, because they have excellent, great triggers with no take up whatsoever. You know, they can have 2-3 pound triggers in them easily. And, you know, and like I said, with no take up at all, and it takes a lot less pressure than you think, you know, and touching force to set one off. And people, you know, can get mistrained and they get in the habit of thumbing off that safety while the gun's basically still in the holster coming out before it's pointing away at their body. And then as they're pulling that holster out, their finger goes inside the trigger guard. They're not planning on touching the trigger, but they just barely catch it, and boom, gun goes off. And Tex Grubner, who's probably the most famous negligent discharge case on the internet, because he was really the first viral video of that ever happening. He was using a 1911, and when that happened, and he was using a special holster, practicing with a Glock, where it was a retention, like a level 3 retention holster, and he actually had to press down with his left thumb on the left side of the gun, or with his right thumb, but on the left side of the gun, to be able to pull that Glock out. And he was real used to practicing that. And then he got a Kimber 1911 with the Serpa holster. And so just because of his training of being so used to the Glock, when he went to grab the 1911, it was where that safety is on the left side, was basically where that thumb placement was of the old retention holster. So he thumbed off the safety before he had even started to really pull the pistol, you know, out of the holster. And then it was a Serpa holster where you have to use your right finger to unlock it. And because of the tension on the right finger and not being, you know, really training with that at all, you know, his finger went inside the trigger guard, barely tapped the trigger, and boom. And we have that famous phrase that no one will ever forget: I just shot myself. So
I've seen that video several times.
yeah, and
have-
that guy's kind of a hero for coming out with that video. He really is. No matter what you want to think about that guy, the information that he put out in that video showing what I think woke a lot of people up. It definitely brought awareness to that holster. Definitely brought awareness to training with this. With, you know, if you're going to be switching stuff, to maybe practice with it with dummy rounds and stuff like that, and just before you go to live fire. And so he really did do the public this service all at his own expense, because that guy's forever going to be a meme, right?
That guy deserves huge kudos for that, and coming out following it up with the videos.
He never had to release that. He could have hidden that. He could have been like, "Oh, I got shot back in Nam." Like, I mean, he didn't have to tell anybody ever. He did not have to release that video at all. He did not have to put that out there, and he knew he was going to get ridiculed. And he even opens that video up with like, "I'm not putting this out there to get ridiculed." Like, but he knew it was going to happen. He knew what was going to come of that, and he still did it. So I give that guy props, man.
Yeah, no kidding.
I don't think I'd have the balls to put out an ND video. Whether I shot myself or not, like but like then some other YouTubers have, like Such has had an ND and on camera, right? And he put that out there. I think he's had 2 of them actually. I think he's had 2 NDs, and he put both of them out on camera.
I think Yankee had one too.
I don't know. I had a AD and an ND back to back, so but that was, luckily for me, that was 20 years ago. So,
I've had they were accidental, but really the one was the gun had been altered. It should not have did what it did. The other one was my own damn fault.
That's another thing I want to talk about. So while we're out, this is a good jumping board for this subject, because it's basically the same thing, but terminology. So I think ND is a anti-gun term started by anti-gunners, negligent discharge. I think that is and I kick myself in the ass for using it, because it's like I'm so used to distinguishing the two, because that's kind of like the way I was taught, is that there's an ND and an AD. But really, like, the ND started by like anti-gunners and anti-gunner terminology, and before there used to be no NDs. Everything was just an AD, like no matter what. Like even if you were a dumbass and you were at fault, it was still an accident, as long because you didn't have like the intention of like hurting somebody or hurting yourself or shooting a hole through your wall, right? So it was always an accidental discharge, no matter how much you were at fault. But the whole ND thing is a anti-gunner for legal terminology, and to prosecute stuff, to further prosecution, and just it's all terminology, right? But that didn't used to be a thing. That like never existed forever.
That's possible. I do think that there is a definite lineage between the two. I think both terms should be used. If you're being a dumbass and do something stupid and your gun goes off, then negligent discharge is what it is.
Well, what I think is that negligent discharge should only refer to if there's a victim. Honestly, so I listened to a lawyer explain this, and he's obviously, the guy's a lawyer, and I'm going to absolutely wreck this, right? Because I'm not a lawyer. But he basically explained that like the negligent, like in order for it to be like negligent, there would have to be like some sort of victim or loss of property or something like that, like to someone, right? There has to be someone that's hurt for it to be like, in order to be really negligent. And everything else other than that is really an accidental discharge. And then he went on further to explain why, negligent discharge was started like as an anti-gun thing.
I guess I never really considered it being an anti-gun.
He was convinced it was. He was convinced that it started as anti-gunner terminology to make us sound that we're like oh, everything used to be like an accident, right? Like everything was an accident. Like accidents happen, car accidents.
These dudes that are out there harping that any discharge that wasn't intended is negligent. I never did buy that shit ever.
The question I have is, if you shoot yourself, does that count as somebody being injured?
Well, you could still get charged with a negligent discharge of a weapon. So that's what I'm saying is it's anti-gun law, it's anti-gun terminology. It's because back in the day, if I was at Walmart and I drop my pants to take a poop and my gun goes off and I shoot myself in the foot, right? It
Yeah.
would be an accidental discharge. I would have to pay my doctor bills, da da da. And I basically learned my own lesson, right? No one was hurt. There wasn't a victim. I might have to pay a little bit of compensation to Walmart if I hurt their floor or something or broke the toilet, right? But like I wouldn't be charged with a crime, right? Because no one was hurt. But nowadays, in like almost everywhere, granted it's state, city, local, county, whatever, specific, but pretty much your gun goes off in public somewhere, right? Even if there's no victims, no one's hurt, even if you're not hurt, you're getting charged with a negligent discharge. It doesn't matter the reason. Oh, my holster malfunctioned, or da da da. I was taking a poop and my gun hit the floor because it's a
Here's
320. Or like it doesn't like you're getting charged with a negligent discharge. That seems to be like a way common thing, and that was the case this lawyer was making. Is that it's anti-gun laws, it's anti-gun terminology, and that we as gunners shouldn't be using that terminology, right? And because it reinforces them, and we need to be more aware of like accidents happen, right? And as you know, like in order for it to really be negligent, there would have to be a victim. And the guy made sense when the way he did. Like I said, I'm butchering it, but I'm gonna see if I can find that video. I watched that. That was a while back. I watched that. I can't remember.
I don't know. There's people who are absolutely negligent with their handling of a firearm.
Yes.
I mean, it just is what it is. Some people are fucking stupid. I mean, now, my father-in-law shot down the back of his leg trying to quick draw revolvers when he was young. He also got burned at the stake playing Cowboys and Indians and burnt the shit out of the back of his legs because his brothers tied him up, lit him on fire.
Bob Munden shot himself in the lake, and that guy was a fastest gun professional, right? He skimmed the top of his thigh, not bad, not but like he definitely took a piece of flesh out, right? Because of his whole hip and da da da, and he shot too quick, and so he had shot himself, right? But was that negligent? Like I don't know anyone who would ever call that guy negligent.
Well, that's just risks of the job, I would say, because you're trying to do something that's exceptionally dangerous.
I would say in order for it to be negligent, there would have to be some sort of victim or something. Somebody would have had to have damaged someone's property, accidentally shot their car or house, or hurt somebody, other than yourself, really. And unless you were drunk, I guess. If you were intoxicated and then you hurt yourself, then yeah. But there'd have to be some sort of victim, right? For it to be negligent. Is this in my mind? Is what I'm thinking. That's
Does the dryer count?
No, not if it's your property. I mean, who says you can't damage your own property? Who says I can't go buy a brand new TV, go stick it in my backyard and hit golf balls at it all day, right? Just if I want to do that, I can do that. It's a free country. So if
My wife didn't share that particular philosophy when I shot her fucking dryer.
Like now, if you were doing something that obviously was endangering public safety, like spinning your gun, right, like out in public, or pointing your gun at people, or just doing something like, yeah, that's different, right? But I don't know. I think that like that lawyer made real good sense when he was saying that, like how people used to just have gun accidents. Like it used to just be an accident. Like, oh, I dropped my gun, or I was putting my gun in my holster and it accidentally went off, or whatever the case was. It used to be accidents, and now it's negligence. And that's a anti-gun thing, because no matter what you do, whether it's drive a car, fly a plane, accidents happen. And somehow people expect like not only that, but they have brainwashed gun owners themselves into expecting that gun owners need to be like somehow perfect. And we do try to be, and we usually try our best to be, but that's, I think, an impossible thing to ask. Not anyone who works on cars is going to bust their knuckles, man. You know what I mean? No matter how good of a mechanic, no matter what nice air tools you got, no matter what mechanics gloves you wear, like, you're going to end up getting some busted knuckles, scrapes, bruises, cuts. That's like the name. That's just part of the game, right? And because of that job, and if you handle and play with guns and shoot guns, you're more likely to have a gun accident than someone who never picks up a gun or hardly ever picks up a gun. That's just the law of reality, I guess.
I got a real wake-up call with one of the two Birdie 1875 Outlaws I have. One of them has a trigger that's about 6 ounces. And you don't really have to press the trigger on that son of a bitch. You just got to touch it, and it goes off. And I'm planning to take it and have that changed because it's way too light. But after that gun, I'm far more conscious of trigger. And it's, I don't fuck around with loaded guns here. I carry one and it's just in my holster. And any other loaded guns are just in a dresser drawer laying on the bench.
Well, and another thing is gun malfunctions do happen. No matter how much we want to believe that our Glock or our 1911 or our, no matter whose name is on that gun, is infallible, right? I have seen springs break. I have seen sears break. I have seen trigger bars break. I have seen all sorts of parts, both MIM, solid, cast, billet, aluminum, steel, you name the material, you name what it is. They've all broken. It breaks. That's just, everything breaks. And you get the wrong spring to break in a specific gun that can easily still discharge a round off, and now instead of your usual 6 pound trigger you're used to, it's was like a 6 ounce trigger because of a spring breaking or just malfunction. Literally, guns fail. They do. And we don't always know when, no matter what kind of maintenance and care or what you do. Like, you can't say, like, oh, the spring's going to break. It can break in the first 5 rounds. It can last 50,000 rounds. You don't know.
I'll be right back. I got to get some more coffee.
Have you ever had a gun malfunction or a break on you, John, or ever had an accidental discharge or a negligent discharge?
I had an accidental discharge. And
What? You want to share the story?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess, because
You don't have to. You don't have to. I'm just saying, if you think it might help someone out there, they might learn, then yeah.
My father passed away in 2012, so yeah, I'll go ahead and share it. I was 10 years old. It was 1962. And being a 10-year-old, I was fascinated with guns. And my father had in his nightstand a Star pistol. It was an automatic. It looked like a 1911.
A BM9.
No.
No?
It was 9mm, but this was before the BMs.
Oh, okay.
This was 1962.
Oh, okay.
And it was full size. It had a 5-inch barrel, but didn't have a grip safety. And I stupidly got it out and was playing with it, and it went off and put a hole in the wall. And since I had it angled up, it went through the wall and went through the roof. Yeah, I real fast. My father had in the basement some spackling compound, so I patched the hole real fast on one side of the wall and kind of did a crude touch-up job to the wall. And it stuck a chair in the roof. Took a kitchen chair and used the table, the leg of it to open the hole in the roof to make it look like I was angry and had shoved the chair into the roof. But I will never do that again.
You shoved a chair leg through the roof? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
To stop it from leaking?
Millimeter. Yeah.
And did your dad find this? Like, how? Like, what did he like? Did they ever find this out?
Actually, no, they never did. My father at the time was stationed in Korea, and we lived in that house from 62 into 63. Um, my mother's mother lived down the street from us, and we'd gone there and to rent that house because my father was going to be in Korea for a year. And no, they never did find out. I did get in trouble for putting a hole. I forget what story I used to cover the hole in the wall, but
It was your baseball or something. I was playing ball in the house, Mom.
And then I had to count for the hole in the roof, and yeah, I got in trouble for it, but they never did figure out why the holes were there. So, but you know, dumb 10-year-old kid playing with something he had no experience with. My nephew, he's very into actually, he's my great nephew. He's my nephew's son. He's into guns, and like 2017 in the summer, I bought a Zastava PV1, and he come by to visit, and I showed it to him, and I say, "You know what that is?" And he goes, "An AKS 74U." And because he plays those games, Halo, and he sees this stuff. And it's a Stava PV1, looks just like an AK-74U without a stock. And I was impressed that he knew that. But he's very interested, and I've sat him down and explained to him about guns and what to do and not to do with them. So hopefully he won't do the same thing if he gets a chance.
Hopefully, he's not going to be putting any holes in any ceilings.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah.
No, my story is I basically had a guy work on a Glock pistol named the Glock Doctor at a gun show. He had like a booth set up, and they had like the full package done.
Yeah.
And like 3-pound trigger bar and just like the whole works, right? Like everything they did to a Glock back then. All the extended controls, all that stuff. And when I put a round in the gun would fire. And just by dropping the slide. And when it happened the first time, I thought it was me and not the gun. I blamed myself. I thought I had my finger on the trigger. I thought I did something wrong. I thought like I just messed up. So I wrapped another round into the gun and did it again.
Wow.
How the hell did it not empty?
Because I was using a mag with only one round because I had a full magazine, right, to put in the gun. But I like to carry my gun with a full, like with a full magazine with a round in the chamber.
Oh, I
So I
get
would
you.
just take one of the crappy 10 round mags I had and I'd put one round in it, stick it in the gun, rack the slide, drop the mag, and then load the full mag. And that was kind of like also, I guess, my way of like practicing reloads and stuff like that too. At the same time of just by like loading my gun in the morning, right? And stuff like that. And because back then, like I had this little like 2-3 year old kid running around everywhere getting into stuff. So I used to unload that gun. And so when I got home from the gun show, I put Hydra Shock right into that 10 round mag, stuck it in the gun, racked the slide, and boom. And I thought like, oh, and I almost did stick the full mag, but then I thought, like I had a moment of clarity. I was like, like, no, like, I don't know. Like I, and I literally pulled one round off of it, put it back in the other mag, stuck it in, racked the slide. And this time I was sure my finger was nowhere near the trigger. I was like really just, because you get so used to doing stuff, you're not thinking about like, oh, my trigger finger's on the outside of the gun. It just is, right? It just becomes habit, so you don't think about it. So when something like that happens, you're sitting there second guessing yourself and questioning yourself because you weren't even conscious of it in the first place because it was just habit. And you're like, wait, where was my trigger finger? Did I press the trigger? Was my finger on the trigger when I dropped the slide? What happened here? But I basically put 2 holes in the same wall, back to back within just like a couple minutes of each other without hearing protection in a house. Luckily, the walls were like solid concrete and everything, so I didn't have to worry about, any kind of, and plus it was pointed in a safe direction out to like a 3-acre field behind the house, like down towards the ground at an angle. Because luckily I always practice pointing my pistol in the safe direction, loading it, even dry firing stuff. So I'd always point it out towards the back of the house, just like I do nowadays. Like anytime I go to load a pistol nowadays or a rifle or anything, it's always pointed in the same direction because I know where that bullet's going to go, right? And, but that really woke me up. I got a free pair of Trijicon sights out of that. Nice sights, anyway. All my money back and all my stock parts put back in. And then that scared me off modifying guns. Because that was the guy who was like, those guys were supposed to be professionals messing around with my guns. And I was just a dumb, young, like 22, 23-year-old kid. So I was like, nope, all my guns are stock from now on. And from then on, all my handguns were just 100% stock. The only thing I'd change on them were sights or maybe grips. That's it. I was scared of any kind of trigger jobs, anything, until I started shooting pins.
I really don't do much in the way of modifications to mine. I lighten the trigger spring on my carry guns to return spring, but not much. This Phoenix Arms I got, I deleted some of the safeties they had on it for California because the gun was not very user friendly out of the box.
I don't like magazine disconnect safeties. That is one safety I'll pretty much disable on any gun that comes with it is a magazine disconnect safety.
Yeah, that's stupid.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like on a lot of my full-size pistols, I don't need a magazine in them to dry fire them. And for dry fire practice, the magazine doesn't aid me or my pinky doesn't rust on it or even touch it on a lot of full-size guns. So I don't need a magazine in there to dry fire practice. And then plus when I'm sitting there racking the slide, dry firing practicing, I'm not getting stuck on a magazine follower, right? Like the slide is not locking back and stuff. So on a lot of those guns, I never have a magazine in them when I'm sitting there dry firing practice. And so having a magazine disconnect safety just automatically says, oh, nope, you can't do this. I'm like, oh, why would you want to disable like the safest way to sit there and dry fire a gun, which would be without a magazine? Like let's take that option away from people. Okay.
That's a European thing, and I think that's because they're too stupid to realize when you take the magazine out that there's still one in the
Well,
chamber.
I can see it for certain things. Like if I was a law enforcement officer or something, like I can see that maybe being an option, like dropping that mag if you get into a scuffle with the suspect and he's grabbing your gun, and then he can't use your gun against you even if there's a round in the chamber, right? Because you dropped that mag. So I can see the point of it, like for certain things, but for like average guns and average people, and just I don't like it. I don't.
No,
That should really be an option. That should really be like, oh, do you want this on your gun or do you not? Like that should be an option on every gun. But no gun should just like only come with that. Like, oh, like our gun comes with a magazine disconnect safety no matter what.
I haven't modified this little Ruger I got yet. But if I can figure out how, I'm going to disengage that magazine with safety. That's bullshit. Suppose you're in desperate need of your gun, and when you changed mags, you didn't quite fully seat it, and when the slide drops, the magazine drops with it.
Or
Got one round in the chamber, but
it's highly unlikely, but you know, there has been cases that have like I think the Miami shootout might have been one. But like where a guy was in the middle of a reload and he got charged, right, by a suspect.
yeah,
Like, you know, he was behind cover in the middle of a reload. So if I like was in the middle of a reload and let's say I had one injured arm or something where I'm not able to reload fast for some reason, I still want the option of just being able to fire that one round. I know it's might still be in that chamber, right? And, man, I don't know. I don't know. There's pros and cons to it. I guess it would depend on what beat I was walking, how close interaction I was having with people, stuff like that. If I was like a regular beat officer pulling people over all the time and stuff, the magazine disconnect safety, I would probably want that in my gun. But but for a regular gun owner, no. It's just more complication, more to go wrong, more to fail, more to break, more to.
the guy reloading raises a question in that situation: is why the fuck didn't them revolver guys have speed loaders? They existed then.
Oh yeah, they existed then. But it was such a common thing. Well, first of all, speed loaders are big and round, right? So they're bulky. Okay. And anyone who's ever carried bulky stuff in their pockets, whether it's a jacket pocket, jeans pocket, whatever, it's bulky. It sticks out. It stretches your pants. It, you know, it's an eyesore. It's not. It tends to might dig into you more because there's more, you know, pressure being applied by your clothing because it's stretching. So I know all sorts of reasons why they didn't have speed loaders, and that's because unless you actually carried them on a belt, like you know, and carried them in a case, they weren't practical to carry in your pockets. I don't think I've never found them to be, and I found them to be, yeah, like you know, and I don't think speed strips were a thing. I don't think they had the speed strips like we do now.
they didn't.
Yeah, they did. They had speed strips back then. Right?
Did they? Okay.
What was that, 86? Was that
Yeah.
86? Yeah, I had them. I had speed strips when I went to work in 88.
Oh,
So I'm pretty sure they weren't a new thing then.
But I mean, it was so common just to carry, you know, 5 loose rounds in your pocket, like that. So, and like many things were cited that like that was an average thing for them to have a 5-round revolver and 5 rounds in their pocket because like most of the time these guys were not going up against like, you know, firepower and they weren't good getting into shootouts and they had become like real. They usually were using numbers as their advantage, right, and stuff like that, and they didn't need that kind of firepower. So
That's one side of it that I don't really think people think about is that these guys probably never figured to be in a firefight like that ever.
oh yeah, They were used to arresting tax evasion guys and people, and just like they were arresting some hardened criminals, but usually they were using uh, a large amount of manpower all at one time, well planned. And this was kind of like out on the road, spur of the moment, sporadic. They had what, like 3 cars with what, 6 agents, maybe, I think. And
At least.
yeah, but there was more than that. But they were everyone else was around the city. Like the actual fight, I think, only took place with like 6 agents, right? And
I watched Paul Harrell's breakdown of that thing, and he said that the reason that fight didn't end as quickly as it could was because the 2 guys that were carrying semi-autos that didn't have to reload as frequently, his glasses fell off and he couldn't see. And I
did they
think about
fall off in the car accident? Because I know they got rammed, right? And there was an accident. And they basically ended up side by side.
it was the other car. The one guy side by side was a revolver guy, and the 2 dudes with the semi-autos were, I think, in the same car. I don't know. I'd have to go read it again now, but they were not quite as close as the guys that were right beside him. That would have scared the fuck out of me. I'm crashing to a stop, and guy points a Mini 14 at you.
Yep. I've seen that Paul Harrell video too, and he does a good job because he actually puts a camera right there and shoots out of a car. Right, he's like, "This is what they saw," and then that's all you see is boom, 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 all around the camera. Like, when the camera's sitting there shaking, like he does a good job of kind of helping you, you know, might helping you kind of imagine what that would have been like.
Yeah, that was the point he made. If a guy had a glasses retention strap on, it would have been a different gunfight, most likely. Because that particular guy was a very good shooter, very accurate when he could see. I can sympathize with that these days.
Well, I didn't like everyone say like that was the guy who had basically planned for that thing like his whole life, right? Like he basically like he was the one who was actually prepared for that event in his whole life. Like
Aside
out
from
of all the
the
agents.
dollar glasses retention strap, but they say he's the one that actually shot the fatal shot. Now, I don't know that that's absolutely proven or not. It was done with the 9.
That guy was shot so many times, dude. He wasn't living no matter what. It was just how long before he finally bled out. Like he had already, like he like not only like the one that was like fatal, but just his other wounds would have been fatal if they weren't treated in a certain amount of time. Like he had got shot in the lung, I think, right?
Yeah, the one went through his shoulder and into his chest cavity and severed a major artery. The guy was dead. Just had to run its course.
That's one of those mentality things because like I think a lot of people would have given up right then and just been like, oh, I'm done, right? And but that guy had like the mentality of like, I'm just taking as many out with me or something, right? Like he had a whole different mentality going on. Or was it drugs? Was that guy like on PCP or something? I
No,
know that was a big back then.
I just caught that on a video this morning. Somebody was referencing that, and they said that the blood test showed they weren't on nothing. But good.
'Cause I know the LAPD and stuff. I have read some cases about some guys that they had shot like on a PCP, taking like 40 rounds and stuff like that, and keep coming like amazing superhuman type stuff. And then taking like basically fatal blows, but keep coming.
That's the reason why they train cops to shoot until they stop. Because if they ain't stopped, there's still a potential threat.
I know in the gangster days, Buck Barrow, Clyde's brother, took a round through his left eye that took out a section of his skull, and he was able to return fire. So I guess there's something about people that if, unless you put them down, they ain't gonna stop.
It's that mindset, that whole kind of, mind over matter, I guess. Like it's a
Yeah.
it's a mindset thing. I think some people are more warrior, like, I don't know. It's
I think it's largely due to adrenaline too, and how people react to adrenaline.
oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I bet you that you're probably exactly right. Some people probably dump a lot more adrenaline than others. We all differ in biology, so I can definitely see seeing some people react differently and getting, like, their body's producing more adrenaline than other people.
Some people on large adrenaline dumps freak out, and others become extremely more focused. I don't know, man. It's tough to say. I don't get rattled very easily. I've been petrified at times, but never incapacitated me. And nowadays, hell, I take drugs to keep things calm. Plus, I have a pacemaker to hold my heart level. So, the guys who get buck fever, same idea.
Yeah, I can see that. Hunting is definitely an adrenaline rush. There's definitely a dump of adrenaline there. I don't know. I guess it comes in different amounts depending on what you're doing, right? So I know there's for me at least, there's a small adrenaline dump hunting. I wouldn't call it a big dump though. I wouldn't call it like the same experience as like bungee jumping or skydiving, or I wouldn't put it on that same level though. For me, but other people it might be like that same type of level.
There's guys that get the dump so bad they're shaking they can't be really accurate with their gun. These are probably mostly new guys. And then they make the worst mistake of all. They get up and start looking for their wounded deer right away. Killed deer, which most of the time it runs for a quarter mile.
They start running after it and trip and fall. Get
They
hurt.
start running after it and push it. Deers tend to, if they get hurt like that, they'll run 100 yards to lay down. That's a generalization. Not everyone's that way. But if you don't push it, usually it'll stay a lot closer to you when it dies. That's shit the hard way. I ran one for almost a mile, down on my hands and knees, crawling, looking for blood tracks, and just luckily come out of an edge of timber and seen the clay in the wheat field. That son bitch had completely bled out before he got out of the woods, and he still made it probably 400 or 500 yards into the wheat field. That's we jumped right on it.
I don't know. Like we can have like a lot of up and down, like real rough, tight canyons where we hunt, where you can be shooting basically from like one side of a valley to the other, get a deer and stuff like that. And then that deer has the potential to run over the top and then down into the next valley and stuff, right? So you can be looking at some like literally like instead of going up and over the top of a peak because that's just like too much. You have to go all the way around it and try searching and just so it's very easy to lose a deer basically out here. Like very easy. And so like a trick that I learned, man, is get that front shoulder. Like, like that. Take that front shoulder pocket out, and that usually puts them down right there. Like within like maybe 25, 50 yards. Like I don't know, like even with just something like a 30-30, that seems to do the trick pretty well. Just that front shoulder.
This deer I was just talking about, he was shot right in the freaking chest from front with a bow. And the arrow went in and cut the top of his heart out.
No.
And we went and tracked him. We found a spot where he laid down and rolled around to get the arrow out, which he did. And because we were on him, some bitch got back up and ran. If we'd have waited, he'd have died right there where he laid down. Certainly a learning.
500 yards doesn't sound like a long ways, but when you're trying to drag a deer out of the bush, that can be like, a marathon. That can just be like an all-day thing. Like,
I'll bet I did 50 or 60 yards on my knees trying to find blood on the ground.
have you ever used the ultraviolet lights, the UV lights, to look for blood?
I have not. This has been 30 damn years ago. Couldn't hunt them with nothing but a shotgun or a bow here then. I didn't mind bow hunting, but I really didn't want to go hunting with slug because they just tear up so much.
I know that's why people are like, dude, you know how much meat you ruined, like hitting that front shoulder, and like, there's like good meat there, and and I'm like, man, I'd rather like waste that shoulder and like have that deer drop right there within like 20 yards or something of where I hit him, and then have to like chase him up and over the ridge and risk that. Yeah, I could very easily not hit him in the shoulder. But just like you said, you can hit them in the heart, but you just hit them across the top, or you're just nicking that heart. But you can take even a good chunk out of it, and they can keep going. Like and 500 yards can literally be like an all-day thing to like get a deer out. It can be like, oh.
Yeah, I was with my cousin, and he's the one that actually shot the damn thing, and I didn't see any of it, so I don't know which way the deer ran. He did, but it became actually we both had thought we lost it, and so I'm with you on that. 3/4 of a deer is better than none.
Yep. So I learned my lesson, like when I was young. So I took some advice I was got, and I've never lost a deer, and I've never had any issues. And like I said, I don't have them run from me, and they don't get very far, and it's just not an issue. So I just aim for that front shoulder, and depending on your angle, of course, kind of dictates on where on that front shoulder you're going to aim at on their angle towards you. But pretty much I'm getting a good piece of that front shoulder in a direction also towards their heart, right? That's kind of like what I'm trying to go for. And hoping to, maybe throw some bone fragments into that heart too, if anything else. And but if you take out that front shoulder, they don't. I mean, they get face down, and when if they try and run, but they drop. They drop pretty quick. You usually don't have to do any kind of second or follow up shot or anything like that. By the time you get to them, 150 yards, they're done. So
I just watched a video on the 350 Legend Winchester round. These guys showed 6 different deer they shot with it, and 4 of those 6 dropped right where they fucking stood. and just boom, down to the ground. Two of them ran about 50 feet, maybe 100, and went down.
What's your favorite deer round, Tony? Deer caliber.
44 Magnums. I
That's
can't
your
hunt with
favorite?
a rifle.
What about you, John?
I don't hunt.
You don't have you ever hunted?
One time, and I ended up with buck fever, and he got away.
That precisely is what I was talking about with the adrenaline.
Yeah, I didn't. I was so I didn't even fire a shot.
You can take up something else than deer hunting. I haven't been deer hunting much, except I started again the last 2 years, but I didn't hunt for 15 years before that for deer. I don't like the taste of deer that much. And I decided that I was going to get some and grind it and mix it with hamburger if I got one, and then make jerky out of the rest of it. I don't want to
Yeah.
eat deer roast.
Well, yeah, it really depends on where that deer's coming from, right? Because they really are kind of like what they eat thing. It really is like So like if they're real gamey tasting because of like the brush and like what they're eating. Um, yeah. So because I've shot deer in different areas here that are in like vastly different, almost climate, different climate regions. And so these deer will have vastly different food sources from each other, and you can definitely tell a difference.
Well, that's the same with squirrel. Squirrel out in the woods where I go hunting, they are great. But if you shoot one near a town or anywhere where they can get garbage, because squirrels will eat about anything, uh, they're extremely gamey. Also, if you can get a deer down, shoot it and drop it right there, it's going to be the best it can be because it don't have the adrenaline in it either.
Well, its muscles didn't tense up and stuff, right?
It's a theory. I haven't really experienced that firsthand, but I've heard that from people that I think are probably telling the truth.
I've heard that too forever. For as long as I can remember, I've heard that. I don't know. All I know is deer to me is never going to be as good as like beef or something, or chicken maybe even. But when you have like 3 teenage kids, and compared to the cost of like a deer license, right, a deer hunting license, uh, yeah, yeah, and compared to the price of what beef is per pound, oh, like how can you even how can you even compete?
I don't know. At squirrel, I found that you can do anything with squirrel that you can do with chicken. It's so damn similar.
Do you boil it first?
I generally, to stretch it, I usually make stew out of it. So yeah,
Yeah, that's the way that those things are usually best. And for some things, even if I'm like going to like grill, like make some deer steaks, I might boil that meat first for a little bit.
uh, we've done deep or not deep fried squirrel. Like you do fried chicken, and oh, it's fine. I don't boil that shit first. Now, when I make stew out of them, I tend to boil them toward they come off the bone, just because the bones are smaller and I had kids here, little kids.
So give us your squirrel recipe. Let's hear your whole squirrel recipe. Let's hear Uncle Tony's cooking tip. So today is going to be squirrel. Give it to us.
Got it cleaned and still whole. The body's whole. Throw it in a skillet, fry it a little bit to brown it on the exterior. Drop it in a pot of water with onions, potatoes, and carrots. And if you want, you can put some stew mix seasoning in it. that's what I would recommend if anybody would try it, because the ingredients to do it straight up are more than I intend to list here. Cook one of them seasoning packets. Hell, you can even put dumplings in it. If you want to cheat on the dumplings, just get them tins biscuits out of the refrigerator, cut them in quarters, and drop them in the boiling stew.
So I'll give my squirrel cooking tip. So I usually don't like when we get squirrel. It's usually while we're out camping and stuff to eat, right? And to teach my boys to try and survive off the land, so to speak, that kind of a thing. And so what I've done is just basically take the whole body, wrap it in tinfoil, cook it over an open fire. I guess you could use a little bit of salt and pepper and stuff like that, but usually we don't have anything like that because when we go out pretty minimalist, I guess, so to speak. Because I really try and teach them to like, hey, we're gonna go live off the land or we're gonna starve for tonight, right? And but yeah, just some tinfoil over an open fire.
I did
Yeah.
that starving shit.
Yeah.
We went
It's-
out. I used to do the freaking living history displays, and to practice this, we'd go out in the woods and try to stay for a few days and live off of what we could get. Our dumbasses went out there once before it was hunting season and didn't think about it. We're already packed in. When we get ready to go up and sign in to hunt, the board to sign in on ain't there. We made it through that day, and about noon the next day, then it's like, fuck it, we're packing out of here and going to get something to eat.
I'll tell you what, that's a different type of camping experience. Is when you're like, oh, we're gonna go camp up in the mountains, and not like we're gonna take some water with us, and that's it, and then just some gear, right? And literally going out with no food, and like leaving like say like on a Friday afternoon, and not planning on coming back till Sunday. So you're either gonna starve that weekend, or you're gonna fish or hunt, and you're gonna eat, right? And it gives, I think, them a lot more incentive, and I think it's a better experience. I think it's a better camping experience than like taking like marshmallows and chocolate and like all the like home comforts, I guess. And we seem to have a much better time doing stuff like that. And even if we do starve, we seem to have a better time.
After the starving event, we wouldn't go out anymore without taking some noodles or rice or something that you could actually get calories.
But when you cook it, it's important on my way with the tinfoil to make sure the juices don't drip out. So when you roll it up, you want to make sure it's kind of like a bowl or something, so the solid part's on the bottom, so the juices stay in there, so it doesn't dry out while you're cooking it. And just throw it over on top of a fire, or you can literally throw it right down into the coals if you don't have a little grate or you don't want to make like a little sticks to support it or something. You can literally just throw it right down into the coals in the tinfoil,
Now,
for about 20 minutes, half an hour, and you got a good grilled squirrel. And then we just pick it right off the bone.
two things. First off, my squirrel stew starts with soaking the squirrel in salt water overnight in the refrigerator. That way, if there's any blood in the tissues, it'll kind of pull it out. Secondly, people need to go check out a YouTuber named Blackie Thomas on some primitive bushcraft skills. How to make yourself a cook setup without any, just going and grabbing sticks and shit out of the woods.
That guy has an excellent channel. He's
Yeah,
also
yeah.
the same guy that'll show you how to make like reload your 12 gauge shotgun shells out in the middle of nowhere with like black powder or homemade black powder and stuff like that, with just basically stuff you can find out in the woods, like not.
But some of his bushcraft skills are actually, it's amazing how simple it is, but I would have never thought of it. So that's a good one to check out to get some, and there's a lot of shit in there that I don't really care about, but he's a big guy on knives, and I'm really not. I don't own a non-folding knife at all. Well, I do have a filleting knife, but I'm just not really into all that knife thing. I have knives to whittle with, pretty much. Although, it's surprising when you don't ever carry a knife when you start carrying one, how much you'll use it. Within like 2 years of starting to carry a pocket knife, I won't leave without one now. Fuckers are handy for a lot of shit. But anyway, the Blackie Thomas and Shaman's Forge Woodcraft. But I think he's on YouTube as Blackie Thomas now. There's a shitload of interesting stuff about surviving in the wilderness with nothing. Or very little.
Have you ever tried to go out and like fish with nothing but like a survival kit setup and actually test like your little survival kits or survival gadgets? So you're taking these little like a stick and tying a piece of fishing string to it and this little hook, right? And like, have you guys ever done that? Like, actually tested out some of those survival kits that come in like Rambo knives or stuff like that?
I haven't tested the survival kit, but I have spent my time behind a cane pole quite a bit.
I've
Same
never been
idea.
fishing. I don't eat fish, so I've never been fishing.
You've never been fishing? 'Cause you don't eat fish?
No,
Are you allergic to them? You just don't like them?
no, I just don't like the flavor.
Just don't like them. That's normal.
I'll tell you something to try if you get a chance, and that's some sort of whitefish, bluegill or crappie or something like that. Fillet it and use Texas Roadhouse steak seasoning on it, and then grill it. I don't like fish at all, but I like that.
Oh,
It is really good, and it's like a sirloin seasoning or something from Texas Roadhouse, and they sell it in shakers like the meat tenderizer shakers or the seasoning shakers that are 5 inches tall and 2 inches in diameter. My brother did that. We were camping side by side down in a campground. It wasn't a real primitive camp. And he brought them out and he tried and he said, just try it. He said, I don't like fish either, but trust me. He's right. God damn, that was good.
Ozzy out there in the chat says that he has most of his deer made into salami. And for squirrel, he will boil, debone, and barbecue. Let's see here. Illinois deer are mostly corn-fed, he's saying.
Yeah.
So I bet a corn-fed deer has to taste good then, like better than the deer I get here. The deer I get here ain't no corn-fed deer.
The thing that you see prominently about our deers, they're so fucking big.
So they're eating pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty well fed here.
And going back, Vanessa Kitty says any discharge of weapon in town here is illegal. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. So instead of like you can't even have an accident in a town or something anymore when it comes to a gun, but yet you can have an accident in a car and run into a pole and it's just an accident, or you can have an accident and still hit somebody and it still be an accident in a car, or in with a tool, even a power tool, you can drop a hammer off of a roof and it can hit someone in the head and really mess them up, but it's an accident. And but with guns, everything's all negligent now, and that's an anti-gun philosophy.
Now, on not my first one, because I had a couple when I was a kid too. On the first one that I had of the last batch, let's say, when I started carrying gun again, one of them was a Taurus PT-709 that I loaded second magazine into it that was stored in the back of a vehicle that was cold. And I mean, I'm talking, 15 below zero cold, 10 below, something like that. And I emptied the magazine on the thing, and then I put the second one in, and the gun malfunctioned, and I got pissed off. So I dropped the mag, put the gun away. I brought it home, and when I went to dismantle it to look at what the fuck was going on with it, I racked the slide several times, and I pressed the slide release and pulled the trigger, and that motherfucker went off. And just fortunately, my hand wasn't down in front of the muzzle. And what had happened was the chamber was kind of shitty on it, and the ammo went in cold and warmed up in there and expanded and stuck. Because it was aluminum cased ammo, when I racked the gun, I looked, I didn't see it.
Do you know what's another anti-gun thing to go along with that, Tony? If you would have got hurt and went to the hospital, any injury from like a gun is like automatically has to be reported to the police for statistics. So like if you go in there and you mention that you got injured by a gun, even if you go in there and you say you had slide bite, did you know that?
Yeah.
If you get slide bite, that's reported to the police.
I got a scar.
At least here it is. So that might be, I guess, that might be a state or county thing, but I think it's a pretty common thing, pretty much everywhere. Not just gunshot wounds, but like injury, like just mentioning a gun or firearms and then being injured. Like all that's compiled. Like that's all that's collected. There's an automatic red flag in the air that mentioned the second you mention gun or firearm. And I think that's also anti-gun, because then they use those to twist statistics about injuries, like gun injuries and stuff like that. People being injured by firearms when it was just slide bite or something stupid like that, a burn from a cylinder gap.
I was standing kind of behind and right to a guy that had a Savage 110 blow. And I mean, that gun blew to bits, and it jabbed me in the gut with a piece of shrapnel. And I went to the doctor to be sure there wasn't nothing stuck in there or anything. And they had to do the gunshot incident. I'm like, dude, it wasn't really a gunshot, it was an explosion. It's a firearm injury. I decided after that, if I did it again, I'd just dig it out with a pocket knife.
Well, yeah, I got burned recently on a barrel, right? Like pretty bad burns. And if I would have went to the hospital, yeah, like that would have been reported if I would have said anything, right? I was like, nope, I'm not going to the hospital for these burns.
Just a tip for you in the future. If you do that again, you have to go get medical treatment. Tell them you did it on a
stove,
cast iron skillet.
Yeah. I didn't realize a 50 BMG barrel like that thick and big could get so hot after just so few rounds. It just didn't even click in my mind that like, oh man, this thing's it can really get that hot that quick. Just
these revolvers, after 2 or 3 shots, they're so hot you can't touch cylinder.
Well, and it doesn't help that the whole gun is nothing but barrel, and that's pretty much the gun so heavy you pretty much have to grab it by the barrel to pick the gun up, right? Like that's so like it doesn't help that just the way the gun's designed is like, oh, there's no handguard or nothing to protect your hands. So that didn't help, but I learned my lesson after I shoot a 50 that many times to just let it sit there for a while. No need just to drag it over a little bit if I need to. Just let it sit there. Yep.
When they were teaching us revolver tactics when I was training, they were specifically adamant about how you held that revolver in your hand when you opened it to unload and reload. And it didn't dawn on me at the time, but they emphasized a way that you really didn't have to keep your fingers on the cylinder. Your fingers were through the frame just to keep that cylinder from closing. And after I got to fucking around with this 44 Magnum stuff, I realized that cylinder's really fucking hot, really quick.
Yep. No, I've experienced that shooting pins, so I know exactly what you're saying.
I don't know. It never occurred to me. I never noticed it when I was qualifying or anything like that. But yeah, don't want to burn the tips of your fingers.
I've never really, man, I'm trying to think if I've ever burnt myself on a gun before. And maybe like on a bolt of a 1022 or something that was like malfunctioning after like a brick of ammo and stuff like that. Like just a little burn, right? Like nothing big. I've never been seriously burned by a gun until this happened. Like this was like the real first, like real burn. Like, that just wasn't like gone the next day.
I've got burned pretty good by cases. I grabbed a case that popped out of my 30-06. It come out and it flung towards me and it hit my hat and fell on the table. So I was going to pick it up and put it in the range bag. And I grabbed it and just sizzled my fucking thumb.
So I've been shooting offhand and dry firing practice offhand, and I've realized I suck offhand. And I'm just a horrible left-hand shooter. And it's something I need to really work on. That if I was to ever get injured in my right arm and depend on my left hand to manipulate a firearm and shoot it accurately, that I'm gonna die. That's all.
I used to be almost perfectly ambidextrous with shooting stronger one can. I could switch eyes too, which made it a little bit easier.
I can shoot left hand with rifles, no problem. No problem at all with rifles. Just handguns, nope. Not at all. I've tried using both eyes. I've tried the whole nut and fancy thing, like using my right eye, even though I'm using my left hand. And so I've been like, ever since I burnt these fingers, I've probably shot over 500 rounds, and left-handed, just left-handed, because I really haven't been able to use my right index finger at all. So
I still use left hand because I'm getting into the cowboy action stuff, and you can either switch hands, which costs you seconds, which I'll never ever be able to afford because I'm not going to be that fast, or you can shoot with a gun in each hand. I've done a little practice with it, but not anything timed, so I can still shoot with my left hand, but I'm not as quick as I used to be. I can't see that well like I used to.
Yeah, I'm not very good with my left hand either. Or a little bit of shooting I've done with it.
Well, I've trained with my left hand because I had to be able to shoot left-handed, or I wouldn't pass qualification.
Yeah, I've never had to qualify for anything, so I've never done much left-hand shooting.
I used to like it because they would put you behind cover, quote unquote, a barricade, and they would take and have you lean out and shoot with your strong hand, then shoot with your weak hand, and just to show you how much you sticks out behind cover if you're not able to use your weak hand. It was some of the training stuff was really interesting to do. A lot of it was pretty redundant stuff, that you learn in any hunter safety course. But hell, I've been shooting a gun for 15 years when I went into training. So I was pretty familiar.
So what's a tip you would have for someone to help them shoot better left-handed? Or offhand, I should say.
Left-handed, to start with, use a light gun. I would suggest 22. Offhand, most people really ain't going to hear this, but probably better method of shooting offhand is using the sling. Really learn to control your breathing. And, like if you're out hunting at something, you can take a breath. If you're shooting at a deer 400 yards away that's running, you shouldn't be doing that. So, there's no great magic secrets to it. I'm not one that harps on shooting with both eyes open. I can do it.
Yeah, I've never had a problem shooting like offhand.
What, John?
I didn't say anything.
Okay.
I didn't say anything. I'm sorry about that. It was paused.
What's okay?
Good. Yeah, my father, he taught me to shoot with both eyes open. I always shoot with both eyes open. That way you can see what's going on. People that shoot trap and can't tell whether they hit the bird or not because they shoot with one eye closed.
One of the advantages of both eyes open in hunting is if you're using a scope, it's really hard to track something through the scope. If you're watching a deer walking through, it's hard to locate that sucker.
Yeah. Yeah, because of the limited field of vision. You got to have both eyes open so you can see what's going on. Yeah. It's a little uneven because of the scope and the magnification from the scope and the unopened eye, but you can do it, and it lets you know what's going on is what I like about shooting with both eyes open.
Yeah, and if you practice it a while, it becomes really easy to switch from the eye to the scope to the eye that's just looking.
So I shoot with both eyes open on pretty much everything I shoot except for long range. So a weird thing can happen with your eyes when you're trying to shoot with both eyes open, especially at long range through a highly powered magnified scope, where a certain parallax almost can take place inside your brain because you're basically transposing one image over another, this long range magnified image over an image looking down at the same target. You might not even be able to see this target with your other eye, right? And so this funny thing can take place, a parallax that can it's not really a parallax like the traditional parallax that you get in optics. It's more of a parallax, like there's a certain name for it, but it takes place in your brain, basically in your eyes, that at that kind of at those kind of ranges and distance. So for like long range shooting, I've been taught, and I close one eye, and through highly powered, like again, these are highly magnified optics. Now, if I'm using a lower magnification optic at a closer target that I can see both with my, I might be able to see with both my non-magnified, left eye and then my, 3 power or 9 power scope with my right eye. I can transpose those images a lot easier, and and my shots are still accurate and everything. But longer distances, that seems to be an issue with higher magnification optics.
I'll tell you, a good exercise people out there want to learn to make their eyes switch which one's dominant, sort of. I mean, it won't. It'll let you be able to work with either eye. It won't change your dominance, but if you sit watching videos or TV or something, take your hand, either one, put it about 4 inches away from your face to where the one eye can't see through. Watch TV for a minute, switch. And you do that for a little while, and your brain will figure out what it's wanting to do. So the focus is pretty instantaneous, and it still works for me. I just tried that. But that will help your brain to switch back and forth from one eye to the other. Follow what I'm getting at. See, now I can't hardly shoot a freaking rifle with open sights at any distance with both eyes open. I have to actually concentrate to do that. So I don't care. For some reason, a scope doesn't bother me. And handgun doesn't bother me either. Because either eye, I can't hardly see the front sight on a damn handgun. It needs to be another 6 or 8 inches out there. That's just getting old, though. I would say probably half the time or better, I close my left eye when I'm hunting squirrels when I go to shoot at one. Largely just unconsciously, and some of it's due to the sun.
Well, I'm telling you, if you ever grab a real high magnified, like 24 power or 30 time optic, and you try and aim at a target that's farther away than what you can see with your with your non-magnified eye, right? The one eye you got open, then you'll see what I mean by the transposing of the image, and why it starts to mess with you if you don't close one eye, and how it can be hard to even like really see your target, even when you're using your dominant eye. But it'll be hard to see your target, and your target can look blurry, and a weird parallax takes place where like all your shots are hitting a foot to the left, and that's going on in your brain and not in the scope. And it was explained to me rather well, a lot better than what I'm doing. But like I said, all you need to do is take a high-powered optic and aim at something super far away, and then try and keep both eyes open. And that's where, I think that the one-eyed thing is valid. That's where that comes from. But for all other types of shooting I do, like both eyes open, I don't have any kind of issue there.
Well, I'll tell you, the thing is I don't care if people want to close their eye. Fuck it. If they shoot that way, fine. That's just a piddly ass thing to argue over anyway.
Yeah, that's the way I feel about it. You want to close your eye, go ahead. Just hit the target. That's all I'm worried about.
Yeah, do whatever makes you shoot best.
Right. I mean, just because I was taught how to shoot with, I was taught to shoot with both eyes open doesn't mean you have to. It's just the way I do it.
My gun history has almost solely been hunting. I worked as armed police officer for the feds for 4 years, but beyond that, it's always been centered around hunting. And the one eye open helps you follow squirrels in the trees, or the two eyes open, both eyes open, helps you follow squirrels in the trees if they're moving, that sort of thing. So it's beneficial to use both eyes open, but if you shoot better with one eye, fine.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, you shoot for what you can do best. You don't shoot for somebody else. Excuse me. Um, you do the shooting that you need to do to get the job done. That's basically what you do. And like I said, I do it with both eyes open as much as I can. Uh, at long range, I have closed an eye when I've fired, but I get that eye open as fast as I can.
You know, now that I think about it, I don't know that I've ever considered how quickly I would open my eye. Hell, that never crossed my mind.
But in most pistol distances, I think it's best to shoot with both eyes open because you keep track of what's going on, man. And parallax problem shouldn't be that bad, even if you're using some kind of optic.
Well, you know, as far as handgun shooting and
Well, no,
defense,
at close ranges, when you can see your target with your non-magnified eye, yeah, like it's not an issue. It's just at much longer ranges with higher magnification because you can't see that there's nothing to transpose over with your left and right eye, so you get these two such completely different images
Right.
that have a hard time transposing over each other. And not only can it create this weird parallax I talked about where your shots are off now, but for range estimation, if you have like, let's say a mil dot scope and you're a United States Marine Corps sniper, and now your range estimation will be off because of this parallax and this differently transposed picture. So they'll even teach like a United States Army school snipers and U.S. Marine snipers, like when they're range estimating through their scopes, you'll always see them with just one eye open. And,
Right.
but again, these are like, these guys are shooting 1,000 yards, 1,800 yards, you know what I mean? And most people don't do that. So for the most part, two eyes open pretty much works on everything until you
Right.
really start to reach out there. That's
And,
where you'll run into problems.
and in situations like that, they usually have a spotter who's watching what goes on where the
Yeah, exactly. They have a spotter that's
Yeah.
that's watching everything up close and that's watching their back, and so yeah.
it's not as critical at that point for him to be able to see what's going on with both eyes.
now for the handgun side of it, I'm a huge proponent of learning to point shoot at short
Yeah.
range. You should be able to hit a man-sized target at 10 feet, 15 feet.
Oh,
without even
easily.
requiring
That's the
sights.
thing to be able to point your finger at stuff. That's such a natural instinct of humans to be able to point at something. So that's why I'm a big proponent of having a gun that points well. That when you bring it up to your eye, it's pointing at a target automatically. It's not pointing high, not pointing low. So that's why I like guns that point well because of point shooting.
That's exactly why I don't like Glock.
Mm.
Because they point high for you too, like all Americans.
They're not natural in my hands at all.
Yeah.
If I take the Smith & Wesson that's a copy of a Glock, that's just fine.
Yep. Every single time I bring a Glock up to my sight picture, it's front sight dip, front sight dip, front sight dip. There's always a dip there. I always have to dip that front of that gun down every single time. Versus like pretty almost any other gun I own.
I think that Glocks are perfectly fine guns. I cannot get past that grip angle.
Well, yeah, because they're made for weak-wristed Europeans, obviously. They, Glock had that inherent design flaw of like if you limp wrist them, they malfunction and jam, and they're like, how all these Europeans are causing our guns to malfunction and jam and give them a bad reputation. How can we fix that? Let's put this big hump into it. There we go. So obviously they haven't figured out Americans don't need that yet. At least most of it.
I will tell you one thing. I've got a Colt government model made in 1913 and a Remington Ram made in 1945. And that hump that's on the back of the A1 model, it does help when you grip the flat backed.
Because it was made to go on the heel of your thumb on a 1911 and not in your palm like on a Glock, right?
No, I'm talking about the hump on the back.
The mainspring housing. Yeah, the mainspring housing. So that mainspring housing on the very like below your thumb, like on your hand. So if you move your thumb over and you watch the palm of your hand crease, right?
Yeah.
So that mainspring housing is made to sit right there, and on a Glock, it sits more where your like lifeline is, right?
Yeah.
because of how fat the pistols are. So on a 1911, there is a reason for that to be there, and some guys have preference over that, yes or no. But usually it's not near as big of an issue as it is with the Glock. I mean, I can point either one of those 1911s, great. Either one. I have both. Either one points great. I prefer the flat mainspring housing over the hump, but either one will still point perfect.
The flat mainspring housing looks good, but with me, when I handle that 1913 gun, it dips. The front end dips. And with the A1, it doesn't.
Yeah, and that's why for everyone it's different. That's why I tell people like go with the gun that points good. Like go with the gun that shoots good and points good. That's what you want. That's
To me, it's grip angle. An example of this is Ruger Mark. I hated the grip angle on a regular Ruger Mark. Then they come out with the 2245, which is got the same grip angle as 1911. The first one of them I put in my hand, I bought.
Yeah, the 1911 just feels natural and it points naturally. I've been shooting one since I was 17 years old, and I think it's the greatest handgun ever built or design.
I absolutely love the grip on my SD9. It's got fairly aggressive checkering, if you will. It's a small grip, and it's really good in my hand. And the Sigma isn't bad either, but it's not near as aggressive texture on the grip. I can shoot either of those guns well.
Mm.
That's why they are what I normally carry. And then my 629 on the second. There's another one that's a really good gun in the hand. Once I took that stupid fucking Packmeyer off of it, put wood grips back on it.
I've always been a fan of the way like a lot of single action armies and stuff point to them. There's a lot of revolvers, single action revolvers that point just so good. Like they figured that out all the way back then. That, like if a gun points good, it's going to shoot good.
Yeah, but their design didn't lend well to second shots.
No.
So you're done first. Especially if it had any kind of recoil. I mean, I've got single action 44 Magnums And that's not a gun I would want to go into a gunfight with up close and personal. Simply because after the first shot, you've got to start all over with gripping the gun, getting it lined back up. Smith & Wesson is not nearly as bad at that than 2 or 3 Rugers are, because of the hump on the back that kind of keeps it from twisting in your hand, I suppose. But if I had the Ruger Vaqueros and I were forced to get into a gunfight, I'd be happy I had them.
Yeah, my brother had a Vaquero. That was a nice gun. It was in 45 long Colt.
Well, I bought one that Ruger, when I bought it, swore they didn't make, and that was the Vaquero in 44 Magnum.
Oh yeah.
I bought the first one, and I wanted the second one, and their catalog didn't list it at all. Hell, even the owner's manual that came with the gun don't list it in 44 Magnum.
Huh.
So I had to order a second one, and that Tallow distributor, they're the ones that had them done in 44.
Oh, okay.
It took me a year to get another one.
It was a special order thing.
Honestly, it was an order thing, but it was the year to find it was like 6 months for finding out how it came to be in the first place.
Right.
My gun shop didn't know shit about it. It's just a gun they got in. And once we figured out that it was a Taylor edition or Taylor, then he contacted them to get it. So I really don't know the length of time it took to get the gun made from its order.
Let's see.
And honest to God, as I sit here, it's a fucking mistake. I should have bought him in 45 Colt.
Brian says he shoots with both eyes closed. He uses the force.
Who's that?
Woods.
Oh, well, remind me never to be anywhere around him.
Uses the force. Yep. So like, point shooting, I don't know. It's so natural just to be able to point your finger at something, not even thinking about it, being able to point your finger right at it. And if you can do that, like you should be able to point shoot it, especially at common self-defense distances of 10 or 15 feet. And I think people would be surprised at how accurate they could be, really, at point shooting. I'm talking easy headshots at 10 and 15 feet without even requiring sights.
Yeah, right. It doesn't even take very long to correct where you actually point to start with to where you point accurately. Your body will, or brain will adjust. You find where you want to go. Your brain will adjust and it will become muscle memory.
Mhm.
And, we're not shooting for MOA here. We're shooting for minute of dude.
Well, more than minute a dude, we're shooting here for the fastest time. Like the fastest time from, lead leaving barrel to lead hitting bad guy, right?
Mhm.
Actually, we're fastest time from trigger being pulled to bad guy.
Yeah, because we that's the point and shoot thing comes like when you don't have time to sit there and aim because you take time to aim. Well, you may have still shot that guy, but now you got a knife in your throat too, right?
Now with point and shoot, I want to really be specific on this one. I think that you should point and shoot and push forward with your arms to extend to get ready to aim all at the same time. Because if there's another threat or you're too far away when you start point shooting, you miss. You're already extending your arms for the next shot to acquire sights. It's not the fast draw and shoot from the hip. And I always would advocate grabbing the damn thing with both hands. Just in case your point and shoot don't put the dude down and he grabs a hold of your gun, you want to have the best possible grip a hold of the thing. It's just a tip for people who want to practice the point shooting. If I got to be safe, start at 5 feet.
Busy place over there today.
I had popped off on a comment that I don't miss.
I did. Do you want me to do those?
Yeah. please.
Somebody was saying somebody's chat, and they said, what if this scenario happens, whatever the hell it was? I said, I don't miss. And then we went on to other stuff, and I never really clarified what that was. From the time I was probably 10 years old, maybe 12, I was taught to not take a shot if you're not sure you can make it. And this would have been back in the early 70s when the energy crisis was in full swing. And my old man was a truck driver, so work was iffy. And we got a box of 50 rounds of 22 ammo for a birthday and for Christmas. And that's the ammo I got for a year. And if there's bullets out of the box, there better be squirrels in the freezer or pot. And, it's a philosophy. I don't take shots that I don't think I can make.
No.
I'm pretty much 100% certain I'm going to hit what I aim at. Now, there's guns that have had the sights be off and shit like that. Shit like that happens. I twitch. But generally speaking, that was a philosophy that I was raised on. And that's why all of my grandkids have crickets. Don't miss. Now, they're not going to be limited to that 50 rounds twice a year bullshit. I got ammo to give them, I give them 500 rounds a year. It was a freaking different time back then, man. It really was. There's nothing to go to school in the fall, and there'd be 3 or 4 freaking shotguns standing in the corner of the classroom where the boys had been deer hunting before they came to school and were going to go when they got out.
Now, I don't remember guns in school because I was like at the age right after that. I do remember guns in pickup truck windows being students of the high school's guns, like not even teachers, but the students out in the parking lot, and that not being a big deal, and that they were allowed to have guns in their vehicle. They just couldn't bring them into school, right?
When I went to school in Perryville, Missouri, they had shooting class as part of PE. You can bet your ass I did that one. They would have archery. This was a huge deer hunting community there. So even the school was tailored to that sort of. And I look at what the kids have to go through today, and it's like, God damn, this is like a whole different fucking planet. And the hell, if they say gun in school, they're in trouble. And it's fucking ridiculous, to be honest. Hey, that reminds me, where the hell's Dano? Like how I went from that fucking ridiculous.
I'm pretty sure he got Ubered. He probably got Ubered, hijacked.
You catch that going from fucking ridiculous right to Dano? If he listens later, I want to make sure he understands where that went.
I'll make sure to show him. I don't know where he is. He was supposed to be here, but I think he got Uber assassinated. He got Uber kidnapped, I think. I don't know. I don't know where he is. He probably slept in. If I was him, I would have slept in. So screw this.
I've hung with Daniel several times. I like Daniel. Daniel's a hell of a nice guy.
Now I want to challenge Dano to a simunition duel down in Las Vegas at that place where we can go shoot each other with simunitions. Yep. So at SHOT Show next year, I challenge Dano to a simunition duel. Yep.
God, I might drive out to SHOT Show just to fucking see that. Good video.
Yep.
Save me some money.
Yeah, dude, think like instead of like everyone going to Tulsa, imagine everyone going to SHOT Show instead, and then we can all go do stuff like that. And we're like, oh, like, you know.
And now, if memory serves, Dano probably shy away from the simunition thing because I think he had a bad experience.
Oh, that's what I say. Like, no, he's like one of the most qualified. He'll be one of the most qualified people there. He has the experience. He has a one up on everybody. He's been shot with it before. He knows, like, yep, he's used it. Like, he has an advantage, right?
He'll come with a full plate carrier.
There's this one class you can take where this guy, like, basically kind of, like, hides from you the whole time. And, like, you got to basically, like, track him down and just keep shooting at him. And he, like, hides behind corners. And then there's another one where he's, like, coming at you. Like, he'll just, like, run at you from behind corners and stuff. It's great. I've seen some people just get like, oh, I can't wait to do that.
One of the things that I kind of question about training, and I'm in no way against training. I may rail on it now and again, but I'm not against it. If you want to train, train. I don't give a shit. But what are you training for? My question: are you going to be in a fucking urban warfare situation, or are you going to be defending your house or out trying to get food? I mean, what's likeliest to happen to me here in rural Illinois is not going to be urban warfare.
No, and I agree with that 100%. And some people don't have the money, the physical capability, there's just so many different reasons. We're all so different that it's like really to each their own. If someone wants to own a gun and have zero training whatsoever, I am 100% okay with that. If someone wants to take an hour class or two, I would prefer that, like just to have some like basic firearm safety and some basic instruction at least. That's what I'd prefer. But I'm okay with someone literally being like, "Oh, I don't want anyone telling me what to do. I'll figure my own way out." Okay, you're a free person. Go for it. So,
I'm in that same way. As a parent, you should teach your kids this. And if your parents are anti-gun, I'm very, very sorry, but seek out a mentor. Granted, you can figure it out by yourself. I have no doubt of that.
common sense goes a long way.
It would be much faster, let's say, to have somebody give you the basics. Now, I've had a fairly decent amount of training. I went through police academy twice. That's one of the screw up shit from the federal government shit. When you switch contractor, you have to go through all this shit again. I already did this 2 years ago. You're getting paid. Go do it. Okay.
I think even not just for training, just for fun and just being able to go use a real firearm or maybe even your actual personal firearm, right? And like I said, this place has like these different types of kind of training scenarios and stuff that you can do, or I think you can just go like right at each other, right? Like a one-on-one thing or something. And so whether you want to look at it like more like a sport, like paintball, or whether, that might be good training for some police officers and stuff, real life training, because granted, it's not a life and death consequence, but there's some consequences for messing up and being shot with that ammunition because we've
I
all
think-
seen the welts, right, and heard the stories. So
Well, even without simulation, the run and gun thing where you're pushing your cardiovascular system up would be really beneficial to people. So, I'm in no way against the training. If you want to do it for fun, great. If you're doing it for your,
I think we need to do it just to solve all the gun channel things. Okay, let's. I want to see Yankee Marshall go against Never Enough Ammo. I want, I would think, oh, dude,
we want
Yeah.
to drop Rick in the ring with them.
I want to see like Paul Harrell versus James Yeager.
Well, I'd
I
love
want to
that.
see. Oh, dude, there's like so many good matchups I can think of, right? Just from like YouTube personalities and celebrities. Like, oh, dude, yep. I want to see like the John Lovell, the Warrior Poets Society guy, right? I want to see that guy. Oh man, I want to see him John Wick somebody because that guy is like one of those, speak quietly, carry a big stick kind of guys. I think he'd wipe the floor with some people. But man, we could have like a whole tournament that could become like a whole league, and screw football and baseball like that. Like we could literally have like a shooting sports league, but it'll be like paintball or airsoft, but actually for adults, right? It'll be cool because we'll be using like real guns.
I'm
Real
a
paint.
proponent of walk soft when you carry a big caliber.
Yeah, right. We could have like shot time for the guys on Instagram that are all about the shot timers and pulling from concealed. We can have like Wild West showdowns, right? Where they're on like the shot timer facing each other. When that thing buzzes, they're grabbing into their concealed carry and like shooting each other, right? And with slow motion cameras, we'll know who got shot first, and
Shot
Oh,
time, actually, I think they were one of the things that started that whole disagreement when I said I didn't miss. I don't particularly have feelings one way or another about shot timers. I don't think they're really going to teach you to react to something other than a shot timer. But doing cowboy action shooting, using shot timers there. So, and they didn't even have them back in the day. So, there you go. I really don't care.
I'm just thinking of all the different aspects that we could use a thing like this to promote 2A and like maybe create a whole nother sport out of it, right? Where like we already have airsoft and paintball, which is basically the same thing as this, but this is simunitions where we're using real firearms, right? Like real firearms with, basically a paintball in them. But it's a real firearm now. It's not like a plastic toy filled with air, or you know what I mean, where you got all this extra stuff you normally wouldn't have. Like these guns still have recoil and they still make a loud bang noise, and it's still like I think a more realistic experience than what airsoft or paintball would be, right? And so to make a sport out of this, where you could have like mil sim type things, military simulations, like little army groups going against each other, like just like they do in like paintball, or you could do it for like one-on-one force training or just one-on-one dueling type scenarios. And man, I could just see this becoming like a whole league, just like how that what's the fighting league that's all popular now? What is it? Not Ultimate Fighting, the UFC, right?
Yeah.
It'd be something similar to that, but 2A based, right? like it might be something people want. Because I'm just saying, I would I don't know about you, I'd watch it. If James Yeager and Paul Harrell stepped into a ring with simunition guns and started shooting at each other, you're telling me you wouldn't watch that?
Well, hell yes, I would.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I think a lot of us would.
I've always wondered why the hell there ain't more actual duels on dueling trees.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, they're made to do that. But
Yeah, they're made to actually duel. I don't ever see anyone doing it, like using them to duel with. They'll shoot them solo in a competition and just knock the plates from one side to the other, and then that's it. And then move on to the next plate rack, right?
most of my carry gun practices, I'm on a dueling tree, turning them all around and turning them back, then turning every other one around, turning the others back, and just fucking around killing time with the dueling tree because it's the most entertaining thing there. You know, shooting at holes in paper sucks after a while. The kids really like the steel plates. Not most of the kids aren't real proficient to shoot the dueling tree yet, but that's coming. Kids will shoot about 50 rounds at paper and they're done if they don't have something else.
Yeah, paper is not fun. Reactive targets are definitely funner. So even stuff like your condiment packets and stuff like that can be used as reactive targets, and your old fruit and stuff like that, depending on where you can shoot at. So when all you got's an indoor range to shoot at, and you don't have anything to blow up, like maybe the shoot and see targets that at least give like a color ring around them or something. But there's not a lot of options for indoor ranges for really fun, especially for younger kids. Maybe some of the newer ranges with like the video screens where you're shooting like at like videos, right? Maybe some of those for the kids. But man, yeah, I've taken a lot of kids shooting in paper. They don't have fun shooting at paper very long, not at all.
Right, and that's people are taking kids out. You need to keep that one in mind because kids are kids. They get bored easily. I hate watching shooting videos. It's the most boring fucking thing.
It is. It's like watching golf. I've said that before. I've told a lot of people that like watching someone shoot is like watching golf. And they're like, oh, how can you say that? Like, I'm like, because it is. It's the most boring damn thing I can ever think of is just sitting there watching some guy shoot a gun. Like, it's bang, bang, bang. His shoulders moving back a little, like his head bobbing a little. Like, I'm like, what am I getting from this right now?
And like they come out with that show some years ago, America's Greatest Shot or whatever the hell it was. And I watched that for a couple episodes and I thought they're doing just stupid bullshit on this. Go and shoot a fucking deer or something.
You mean like running across the teeter-totter and shooting a jar of pickles while lighting a fire, like with two sticks? Like, what? Come on. I thought that was pretty realistic. Thought that represented all gun owners and all gun sports fairly well.
I mean, it's great. I know a lot of people like that show. My daughter really likes it. I'm like, man, I ain't ever gonna do that shit.
No, it was all right, but they could have used more. Yeah, I wouldn't mind it like a hunting thing. You drop them all off out in the woods somewhere with the rifle and be like, all right, first one who gets a deer gets picked up. There you go. Yeah, that would have been a pretty realistic test, right? Mounted them all with little GoPros on their heads, let them just storm off out into the woods, see who got their deer.
The hunting shows are completely fucking ridiculous because they shoot an animal that fucking drops right where it's at.
Well, if the hunting shows are ridiculous because they're shooting in a blind on a grazed basically almost like a tame animal that's basically lived in some sort of captivity its whole life that gets fed from like grain little things. And so they just throw a pile of thing on the ground and it comes along like, oh, this is everyday normal. They throw food on the ground for me. But nope, today it gets shot. They're all in enclosed pens and shit, half those shows. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. It really is. Like It's really like no sweat. Have you ever been to like one of those stocked fishing ponds? Like, it's like
Yep.
sometimes it's like the exact same thing as that. Like that, it's like for rich people to go get a deer, but without having to get muddy and dirty and get their hands dirty. And it's literally to cater for like the rich like that. Really.
Want to put on a good hunting show? Let me see that motherfucker crawling on his hands and knees looking for the deer.
I know some of the best hunting shows I've seen actually take place like in Europe, like Finland or some like exotic place, like some, like, and these guys are, like they'll actually show them like, taking an 800-yard shot and then having to track this ram through like, miles.
I was just gonna say I watched one of those shows that was hunting red deer in Scotland, and that fucker lined up to shoot that. I can't say for perspective because it was on TV, but it looked like he was taking at least 800, 1,000-yard shot at that thing.
Yep.
And I'm watching this saying there's no freaking way on earth I would do that.
Well, if you look, like they'll be in mountainous terrain, but there'll be like no trees and cover ever, right? And so like all those animals like see and smell humans coming from so far off and hear them. They either hear them, see them, or smell them from like way before you usually do. So over there, like all the hunting videos I've seen like are like super long range shots. They really are. I would say they're typically 3 times the distance of what I see over here.
Yeah, that stands to reason. The scenery in that particular video was gorgeous. It was, hilly, but there was some rock in it, but it was mostly like a big, long, sloping green meadow. And, God, I'd love to see that in person, but I never really thought about the fact that there wasn't any kind of cover there to mask sense. So I guess maybe that's the only choice they got is to shoot that far away. That's where here. If I'm going to shoot a deer, it's probably going to be within 50 feet because I'm hunting in dense timber. 100 at the outside, I would speculate. Of the deers I've seen that people shot, most of the time they're less than 20 feet away from them. And a lot of it's being smart enough to position yourself in a good way to win. And other, it's luck. I mean, you're lucky that you happened to be there when the deer was there.
Well, let's see here. We've been going for almost 3 hours now, getting close to the top of the 3rd hour. So I think we're about ready to call it. I just want to say, Echo out there is getting out of the hospital here today. I think he said. So congratulations on that.
He has been missed.
Yes. So he gets out of the hospital today. I'm sure he has a long road of recovery. But it's good to hear that he's getting out of the hospital. That's always a good sign when you get released from the hospital. That's usually never a bad thing. So that's good to hear. He had an adjustment to his blood pressure medication, and he passed a stress test with only a mild problem, and they're going to try to adjust with a different blood pressure medicine. So looks like they're still fine-tuning his blood pressure medicine, but that's good to hear that he's getting back on the mend, getting released from the hospital. We hope to see more of David around. Let's see here. We had Midnight Range, Echo Woods. We had Taters. We had Ozzy tuning in. We had Vanessa. We had Scott P79. We had, let's see, scrolling on back. See, did I say Vanessa, Kitty?
Yeah, you did.
Kingpin. We had Kingpin tuning in over there. Thank you guys all for tuning in. Let's see. Do you have any plugs, Tony or John? Anything you guys want to throw out there to our audience?
Knives is running a chat throughout the morning and lunch hour, and I don't know, it goes on till whenever, it's 5-6 o'clock in the evening before it is no longer live.
Yep, the daily open lobby. You can go catch a link to that over on the Gun Channel's front page. That's just a open lobby. Anyone can go over there and join. Mr. Knives is nice enough to host that for everyone that wants to hop in there and use that and talk about pretty much anything. It's not topic specific. And look for that over on Gun Channel's front page.
Yeah,
John,
he usually runs that till about 7. And lobby. No,
Yep.
I don't have anything to promote.
And yeah, he does a real good service. He does that out of the kindness of his own heart. If you would like to support Mr. Knives, if you go over there and jump into his room, you'll see a option to buy some limited edition Mr. Knives stickers, which are awesome. I have a couple. I have one. I gave one to my son. He has it hanging in his room. He absolutely loves it. But it goes to support a good cause for a guy out of the kindness of his own heart that decides to, use his resources and his electricity and his time and put that out there for everybody to use. Pretty much anybody. I mean, you don't need an invitation to come join it. There's literally a link on the front page of Gun Channels. If you've ever never used Google Hangouts, I'll give you a quick rundown on it. All you basically need is a Google Chrome browser, whether on your phone or on on your computer. You just download the Google Chrome browser, which is of course free. It seems to work perfectly with that. You just click on the link; it'll automatically open up a room, and now you're chatting live with people, and you'll have options to either turn on or off your camera to be able to mute yourself and unmute yourself. And you'll be able to converse and talk to other people about all sorts of different things in Mr. Knives chat. But that's also a good stepping board if you're thinking about maybe starting your own show. If there's something that you want to talk about, you have an idea of creating content, you want to start looking into that. Going into that open lobby can be a real good springboard to learn some of those basic tools and that basic stuff that you kind of need to figure out to start to use Hangouts to host a show like we do here on the Early Watch. And then I want to say if Jimmy's listening out there, I want to let everyone know we have heard from Jimmy. Jimmy's out there; he's hanging in. He knows that we have started back up the Early Watch. I've sent him a link every morning now for the last two mornings. When he is available to hop in, he has promised that he will hop in one of these days and join us again for the Early Watch. And as things calm down for him, and he's not so busy, he'll maybe hopefully be able to start joining us in the mornings more and more often, or maybe get right back on track where I can just hand these keys right back over to Jimmy, which ideally would be my ideal situation, because I don't know about anyone else, but really Jimmy and Tony are the ones who really they are Early Watch. And so ideally, my ideal situation is hopefully we can just keep this going, keep it alive so people don't forget about it. And keep putting out that, especially the 2A news content that we usually start the show with. I think it was a very important thing that Jimmy and Tony always did, and that was probably one of my favorite things about the Early Watch. And that's really the tradition I'd like to carry on until Jimmy comes back.
Well, I'll tell you something. You want to give yourself a day or two a week break, because it becomes too much really quickly.
Yeah, that's why I got Tuesdays. That's why we don't do it on Tuesdays. we do it Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Because after those 3 days in a row, I'm ready for the weekend and having that break, right?
Yeah, it was really tough to do that day after day, and I did it that way for over a year.
And
So I
speaking of
got
that, if anyone would like to host an early watch Tuesday show, and would like to discuss 2A topics and all that on the same format, and all that, I'm sure some of these same guys like Tuesday, Tony might want to hop on here on some Tuesday, when he couldn't make it Monday or vice versa. So if anyone would be interested in that, maybe Dano out there or someone, that would definitely be. Since I don't do it on Tuesdays because I'm shooting Tuesday mornings right now. So if anyone else would want to maybe pick this up for Tuesdays, yeah, let us know. Let's do it.
yeah, I'll jump in every day until hunting season, and that's August 1st. And then it'll depend on the weather. If it's ungodly hot, I ain't going out there.
Can non-residents buy a hunting permit in Illinois?
Yeah, kind of
Yeah.
pricey, but yeah.
Or what's kind of pricey, like $130 or?
Probably in there somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I paid the last time I bought an out-of-state permit. It was like $130, and I thought, like, yeah, that was pretty pricey. But
The only thing I've seen come down in Illinois lately is last year they dropped the price of turkey permit from 25 to 15 for residents. That's the reason why I wouldn't go turkey hunting, because I can go buy one in the store for $25. I'd have to expend all that effort to get it. But for $15, now we're talking a different thing. I think I'm going to go for the turkey permit this time. I need to check on that too and see when they open up the lottery for fall.
is there anything where you're pretty much almost guaranteed, like if you put in for a black powder permit, are you pretty much almost guaranteed a deer if you do that because there's so little black powder shooters anymore, or pistol, like a handgun, tag?
Well,
Or
no, because there's what we had. We had shotguns, we had black powder, and then pistol. So that's the choices we get. And as far as guaranteed, that depends on your skill as a hunter. I'm pretty sure.
well, I mean,
anybody-
guaranteed to get a tag, like to get a,
I don't know what the hell they're doing with the turkey permits. I've not really looked into that. The hard part about getting tags in Illinois is the spot, because you have to pick a county or one of the state sites, and you apply for a tag to the specific county or the state park that you want to hunt in. And the state park ones, they only allow so many. So it's difficult to get those. And I had for the past 3 years. Luckily, I didn't even go hunting for them last year because I was sick. As far as I don't know I don't know if there's a limit on the out-of-state lottery, because really, who wants to fucking come here? And so I've seen some TV programs where they go to Southern Illinois a lot, because here there just isn't that much places to hunt. I mean, you're talking most of this place is farm fields, and if you're going to hunt like fence rows or stuff in farm fields, which is an acceptable way to do it, because deers don't stay in the woods, you'd have to know the farmer, and that's a little difficult for some out-of-staters, I suppose. Or you need to go into a public park where deer population is managed, and that's difficult. So I'm pretty certain that if you applied for a permit to a county, it wouldn't be a problem. But I don't know how to suggest people would find a place to hunt within the county. Because if you're in the county, you can't hunt in a state park, even if it's in the county, unless you have the permit for that state park. And I stick with that because I hunt in that state park all the time. If I don't get a permit there, I'm not going anywhere else. Although I could, I mean, I know everybody around here. I could go down and hunt river bottom land, but the packing shit out of there is problematic because you have to be so far from where you park. I'd have to walk a mile or so in.
And almost everyone I see nowadays like either uses an ATV or something like that, one of those UTVs or ATVs. Like,
I have a steel pneumatic tired wagon because I can't use a motorized vehicle in this park. But I'm also relatively close to where I park. I'm never more than a mile away.
do you dress your deer on the spot?
Yes.
The lighter? Yep.
Yeah, too many chances for shit to go bad if you don't. Especially if it's warm. And our first deer season, it could be 50, 60, 65 degrees outside. The second season, it's not so much risk of it being too warm, but
Well, no,
ideally, killing a deer would be best done when it's like 35-ish for a high, so you can hang that fucker outside for a couple of days. You'd have to hide it in a freaking tarp or something from some people who hate hunting, but this area is not that way. I don't see anybody throwing them on the freaking hood of the car lately, but I've seen guys haul them on one of them little platform thingies you put into your hitch on the rear. I've seen several guys haul them that way.
honestly, what I see is guys either take them straight to a special place that basically does everything for them because they don't want to get their hands dirty, or they're dressing it on the spot and they're wasting a lot of meat and they're just filling a couple coolers, and stuff like that and packing it out on their ATV. But yeah, I don't see any deer on hoods of cars or on the tops of in the back, even in the back of trucks. Like I don't hardly see that anymore at all. That's like almost a faux pas. Like, oh my, you're gonna traumatize my kids if they see blood leaking out of the back of your truck.
That's not an issue here. I mean, this is pretty. It's extremely rural, and I think there's a fairly larger percentage of people who deer hunt here than like in the cities. Although we do have to deal with that too. But it's way more common in the society here. Shit, your neighbor hunts deer, so what? For me, it's temperature dependent on exactly how I react. But normally, I will field dress it, and if it's warm, I'll pack it with bags of ice. Because it's going to be an hour for me to get home after I get the deer, load it, do the check-in. So really, you want to go and keep it as cold as possible. And I may be overly paranoid on that. I put a big tarp. I carry a tarp with me in the back of the Suburban, so if I have to, I can throw deer in the back. This year, I'm going to buy one of those receiver platform thingies because I don't want to have to be hefting up a deer into the back of my Suburban because I know I'm not going to get it in there without spilling blood someplace anyway. The interior of it's light gray, so but yeah, beef, deer, and probably any other red meat is better if you hang it for a few days.
And why is that
It lets as much blood run out of it as possible.
possible? Yeah. Let's it aerate?
I honestly, the only thing I ever heard about it was draining blood.
Do you salt it?
Nope. See, if it's too warm outside, then you have to go to Meat Locker and let them do it. Might as well just pay to have them cut the whole damn thing up too, because it's going to cost $100.
By the time you pay for a deer to be processed here, it basically comes out to about the same price as hamburger.
Right.
By the time it's all said and done, so it's like there's not a whole lot of incentive other than you got to hunt, right?
Right,
So-
and that's the same way here. I think probably to have them completely process the deer, you're probably looking at $175 if you want everything back.
And then if you want extras like deer jerky or anything made out of that at the same time, that's all extra. You know.
I haven't been to a processor in years, so I don't know for sure, but it varies. There's processors that are 30 miles away here that do it pretty cheap, but it's still 60 freaking miles round trip twice.
I know, at least I know my place is pretty good. You can actually like go kind of in the back, somewhat, and kind of see their setup on how they process your deer and how it's like literally kept separate in a cart and stuff from like the time that they get it to the time you get it back, basically. So you're not getting other people's deer, you're really getting your stuff back, right? And how everything's cooked in like its separate batches. If you're getting like deer jerky, so you're getting like your real deer jerky back. And so I like the idea of that. I've heard some like other places are just like basically you don't get the same stuff back. Like you're getting someone else's deer.
If I remember correctly now, I think that the $175 or $185 cost I saw was somebody had one processed and they had a portion of it ground and mixed with hamburger to put more fat in it. That's pretty common around here. So there would have been in that, whatever that price was, there would have been the cost of the hamburger. And I don't have any idea how much. So hell, it may only cost $100. And then the guy.
Most places here are about 60 cents a pound. They usually charge you by the pound. And it's like 60 cents a pound.
They
So,
may
like-
do it too. I don't know.
So like an elk's probably gonna average you like $180, and like a small whitetail deer, maybe like $100 or but it's like it's something like 60 cents a pound pretty much everywhere.
I have seen deer
Does-
come out at like 240 field dressed.
Because I will take a deer to be processed, especially a small whitetail, and be like, I want a couple deer steaks and make the rest into jerky. And I will pay for that because deer jerky is awesome and it's awesome. That's probably my favorite way to eat deer is just deer jerky. So
I would be willing to have one processed too, but my lady ain't. She says I can do that myself. Okay.
I don't got a smoker and all that, so like I'd have to buy a smoker and then invest in
have-
something like that.
2 charcoal smokers, one of them little red round thingies, and one of them with it's got a steel kind of barrel, and then a smaller one off to the side of it that you actually it's a firebox. But I have never smoked anything in it. Either one of them, they're just grills. But I'd like to try. But I don't think I'd smoke deer. I'm just waiting for one of the neighborhood. I got a hog farm that's about a quarter of a mile from me. I'm waiting for one of them to get loose. Come in my yard, Arnold, you're fucking going in the freezer. That's a joke. I'm friends with the guy who owns it. I would not swipe his hog. Hell, he would probably damn near give me one if I asked for half of one. Because I did a favor for him. I put all the lights and shit on his ATV to make it street legal here. And he's one of those guys that doesn't forget shit like that. But, you know, you don't take advantage of that sort of thing if you don't need it.
Don't ever
Some-
piss off your butcher is the thing. You don't ever piss off the butcher.
I have been involved in processing everything from cows all the way down to squirrel, actually, but chicken, that's a farm animal. And I'm pretty aware of how to do it on any of them, but I would look up information and research because I haven't done it for, like a cow. God, I got involved in butchering a cow when I was like 12. Hogs, last hog I was part of the process, I was probably 23. Chickens, I don't care to ever touch another fucking chicken as long as I live. It's how much I don't like chicken. But you can batter it and fry it, make it good. Anyway, I would have to look up and research, refresh myself on how to do a cow or a hog because I don't remember. I remember how to do a deer, but that's aside from the loins, all that part is going to get ground up. So it don't matter. You just have to get it off the bone.
Well, all I know is if you can do it yourself, I mean, especially if you have kids and stuff, you can stretch out a couple deers and save so much money on your meat bill and use deer in your hamburger helper and in your, pretty much anything that would call for normal, beef or chicken. You can pretty much substitute deer in it. And granted, it's not going to be the same, but sometimes it's not bad at all. Sometimes it's pretty good.
Telling you, if you do a 50-50 mix of the 73% hamburger,
Yep.
27% fat, it's difficult to tell that it ain't ground beef. It's just like if you got a 80% lean version, because the hamburger puts in what the deer is missing, and that's the fat content. I don't think people would know if they weren't aware of it, that they were eating deer.
No, and I've had deer cooked like that before where I didn't know that it was deer until I got told. So I know it's definitely possible. But the money you can save off hunting, if you do it right and you do a lot of it yourself, and like I said, especially if you have kids and how far you can stretch that meat out, man, like you can save a lot of money on your meat bill.
And you got slave labor.
Yeah.
Here,
Well,
crank
and
it.
if you have kids, that not only that, if you have kids, that can be extra deer too in the freezer. So, boy, it could definitely, we can. I'm not going to say we can still live off the land, in a urban environment, but you can still definitely save some money, growing some of your own vegetables, still going hunting, stuff like that. You can still, I would estimate every year I probably save at least $500 by hunting throughout, for the rest of the year just off of our meat bill. Probably $500 is what I save a year by hunting. That's like a new gun every year.
With the grid down or whatever shit hits the fan situation, a person could probably live off of land, providing they can keep a gun and ammunition for hunting functioning. But I
If
don't
you
know
can make
how
your own
long.
black powder.
I don't know how long they could, because all the fucking people in the cities are going to head through the woods thinking that they're going to be able to live off the land too. Like today, if somebody wanted to go out and do that, they probably could get by with it. Of course, you can't completely disconnect because you have to have ammunition and stuff like that. And, face it, there's only so much shit you can take. I couldn't, because I'm not physically able to be without a whole fistful of damn drugs. I'd probably be dead in a week. But who knows? I mean, it's possible yet today to subsist in the wild. Yeah. I think Canterbury does it all the time. In a shit hits the fan situation, the guy that I respect the most, I guess, Canadian Prepper, he put out the thing that, everybody was going to go out of the cities to the rural areas looking for food, and the game's going to be gone quick.
Yep. People are just going to take from it like other people. What it's going to be, it's going to be every other human's going to be your enemy.
And that gave me some food for thought on that situation, because I was in that mind, fuck, I'm just going to kill a deer. Maybe I won't. I will go kill a hog. I know where they're
It
at.
depends on how far away from civilization you can possibly get. Because there are still some remote spots here where there aren't like paved roads. The guy in his little Honda Civic ain't getting up to the spot, right? And then do you have the gear and the boots and the real equipment to get up to these certain spots and to get back in these certain valleys and stuff like that? So, I see a lot of people going to like state parks and stuff like that have paved roads to them, and the closest, parks to the cities, and stuff like that. But especially out here in the West, man, there's such isolated spots 100 miles from any person in any direction that I don't know how many people would be like, oh, we're going to go to that spot.
See, part of what my thinking on this is that my town is isolated. It really doesn't sit on a main road anywhere. The interstate's 5 miles to the west of me, and the state highway is 5 miles to the east. So people cruising down those are likely not coming here. And I may be all wet on that one. One thing I want to point out to anybody listening is it's really hard to gather on videos how fucking hard it is to go out in the woods and stay for even just a few days and try to exist on your own. The videos that you see are edited where all the fuck up stuff is taken out. Those people, it's amazing we survive, because that is such fucking hard work. I would suggest that if you're thinking anything along the lines, you start working out at that. Just taking a weekend, going out and taking a maybe a little cooking kit, a fire starter kit, and no food, and see how well you fare. It'd be a freaking eye opener, I'll tell you.
Well, I don't know how many times I've gone fishing and haven't caught any fish. You know what I mean?
No
Or how many
shit.
times I've gone hunting and haven't gotten a deer or seen a deer that day, right? Or the next day, or the next day. And when you're starving, 3 days, 4 days, like, and your kids are starving, I mean, like that kind of like, it's just not as easy as like, if it was easy, it wouldn't be called fishing. It'd be called catching, right?
Yeah. Don't take your kids out for that if they're young. I mean, that's, you want to start that one on your own.
Yeah, yeah.
And-
You don't want to take your kids out there until you have an idea and you have that real world knowledge. That's when you take your kids out. And then plus you want your kids too to be like an age of probably like over 10, I'd say like maybe 10 at the youngest.
You don't want to scare them off of the whole thing. So if you're going to take your kids out with you and try the primitive thing right off the bat, take some backup food or something, but kids will enjoy it. I mean, every kid I've ever taken out camping, even prissy little girls, enjoyed it. But none of them kids were hungry either.
Or wet and cold probably, and stuff like that. So that's the one thing too. Everyone when people do go camping, they usually tend to go camping in ideal weather for their climate, right? And or at least warm weather, But like, I mean, can you predict when something's gonna happen and you got to bug out, and if it's gonna be winter or rainy or like what?
Well, I'll tell you, last time we did the primitive thing, I think it was last time, we did it in probably week before Christmas. And we was going out for a 4-day thing. And we were sleeping in what they call a diamond fly, which is just a tarp, canvas tarp that you tie into the shape of a diamond up in trees, and three corners of it are, or three sides, or two sides are down on the ground, and then you just make an open face tent basically. And there was 3 of us there, so one of us had to sleep outside under the diamond part of it where it comes back narrow, which was me. And I woke up the second day we was out there, 6 inches of snow on me. Now, starting a fire that's been put out because it burned down and then it's got snowed on, when you're really fucking cold, is a miserable son of a bitch with fire steel. I have great respect for people who lived back in those days when that's how you lived. Because, hell, I was quite a bit younger. I was probably in my mid-30s when I did that. And it was fucking hard. Fortunately, we had enough presence of mind to have a good start of kindling inside the diamond fly back in the very small corner because, they talked like we could get some snow. Watch Jeremiah Johnson and the first time you see him trying to build a fire. That's pretty damn realistic.
Right? It is actually.
Yes.
It's not as easy as these like survival experts make it. Like, oh, you just chink chink chink. Oh, look, there's a fire.
Part of our living history group, and there was a dozen of us, we were ones that would go places and set up in wintertime. Because it was a really popular thing to do that around Christmas. And we always begged for it to snow, but we was in a full tent when we did that. so you wasn't going to get snowed on. Cold, if it didn't get down to below zero, it wasn't too bad because you'd hide a sleeping bag under your wool blanket. And then when you get up, you hide that so people can look in your tent. They don't see it. But so winter camping can be done and not be overly uncomfortable. But if you're going to go out and try survival camping or camping like they did in the Revolutionary War era, that's a fucking job.
What do you think, John? No starting fires.
I have no clue. I've always used a match.
Why aren't we so spoiled? I mean, I've tried to use like the rods, like the survival rods, right? And
Yeah.
sit there and throw sparks, and unless you have some like really, really dry tinder, it can be super hard. And
Yeah.
like I found like, oh, when you're camping up to somewhere, that's where you take your tinder from, like before you camp up, and put it in your pocket and let it dry out, like in your pocket, and stuff like that. You don't wait till you climb up the mountain and then try and find dry tinder up there. And I've heard laundry lint works really good, but I've never had good luck with laundry lint. I guess my laundry lint's just not good laundry lint or something.
Well, this leads back to Blackie Thomas. And he shows ways of scavenging kindling or fire starter materials, like to start one with, out of rotten logs, pine logs. They're something to do with the pine tar, but I think any wood that has sap, might work, but I haven't followed up on that. But pine tar becomes exceptionally flammable at a certain point. I can't remember what the hell they call it, but you can check out Blackie Thomas and Making Fires. He's got several videos on it, and he's down in a humid area, so he's going to have fairly dry wood to do anything. I can't remember what the hell they call that wood.
What's that?
They seek out a specific wood, and it's not a tree type. It's the way it's decaying, and they call it oil wood or something like that because it's fairly easy to light. I don't know. I'll look into it and give the name tomorrow if I remember it.
Yeah, I threw Blackie's links out there in the chat to his channel. But yeah, that's a good channel. I mean, that guy's a smart man.
He also, he's got a real clever backpacking setup to be able to carry and have everything you need to survive out in the wild, if you will.
Well, and I found his channel through some black powder stuff. I'm pretty sure is how I originally found him. He had some videos on how to like reload a 12 gauge shotgun shell using just like black powder with just like a stick and like a log that you'd find out in the forest, right? Like you didn't need any special tools, and how to use like a leaf or something as like the wad, and like all sorts of crazy stuff. And like that's how I found his videos, where like he had some really cool more like survival or stuff like that, like gun videos, like black powder stuff.
Oh yeah, and then if you go farther in, you start getting the bushcraft side of it, which is some of it I don't give a rat's ass about bushcraft, but this guy is using old stuff, not the latest state of the art stuff. and old stuff like that. If we got into a horrible situation, you're more likely to find old stuff in someone's house as to find new gear because they've carried that new gear off. Jesus Christ, 11:30.
Yep, I think we need to call it. So thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been Early Watch. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific. Laters.
Good day, everybody.
Good day.
Good, you guys got a minute.